almost all the important topics on international relations. Yesterday, we were talking about the Indo Pacific region, and we had covered almost all the important topics under Southeast Asia and East Asia. We had just a few last topics left, so we shall resume the discussion from here. And after we complete this, we shall take a look at the other part of the Indo Pacific, especially the South Pacific, including Australia and the Pacific Island countries. So these are the topics we'll be starting with today. So we had covered India, Japan, India, Vietnam relations yesterday. We even spoke about regional groupings like ASEAN and ASEAN Regional Forum. So we were talking about the growing ties between India and ASEAN. We discussed the free trade agreement between India ASEAN, how it was a bitter experience for India. So let's see what have been the focus areas for India with regard to its ties with ASEAN grouping. One top priority has always been connectivity projects. We have always focused on improving connectivity, both land and maritime connectivity, and even air connectivity, so that this could boost trade and as well as tourism and would provide an opportunity for improving cultural ties as well. So, various projects like Kaladan project, the IMT Trilateral Highway, all these connectivity projects have always been a priority for India. But as you know, these projects have faced several hurdles and delays, mainly because of the situation in Myanmar. So, this is another area of common concern. The constant political crisis in Myanmar bothers both India and ASEAN. In fact, when the latest crisis broke out in 2021, and when Myanmar's military junta committed large scale human rights violations, ASEAN stepped in trying to work out a solution, and it even proposed a plan. It came out with a solution to try and resolve the crisis. But Myanmar has not shown any inclination to implement the solution. And within ASEAN group, there are some divisions. There are some countries which are pro Myanmar, there are some who have issues with Myanmar's military dictatorship. So, this internal split in ASEAN countries on the Myanmar issue has not been able to bring the right pressure, the diplomatic pressure, to make changes happen in Myanmar. India had supported the ASEAN solution to bring stability to Myanmar, but Myanmar has not implemented these measures. According to the solution, ASEAN countries were encouraging a complete halt to all the military operations in the country and a restoration of the democratic process. But Myanmar's military junta has not abided by the solution. It has cast away the ASEAN solution and the country has plunged into a crisis. But India had backed the solution of ASEAN and we were hoping for stabilization in Myanmar, which hasn't happened till now. So the constant instability and crisis in Myanmar affects many of our projects and investments as well. Along with that, for India, maritime security has become a top focus, especially under the Act East policy. As China has become more aggressive in the Indo Pacific, India has prioritized maritime security, which includes military exercises, disaster management exercises as well. So, as part of this enhanced military cooperation, India has even got access to a strategic port in Southeast Asia, which is the Sabang port that you can see here in the map, which belongs to Indonesia. You can see the island of Sumatra. This is the Sumatran island of Indonesia, which is very close to our Andaman Nicobar Islands. And it also lies right next to the Malacca Strait. It's right next to the Malacca Strait. Correct? This is the Malacca Strait here between Indonesia and Singapore. So Sumatra Island lies right next to it. At the northern tip of Sumatra, Indonesia has this strategic naval base and port called the Sabang port. India has gained access to the Sabang port, and the Indian Navy can use Sabang port for refueling, resupplies, and logistical support. So, this allows India to further extend its operational range beyond the Malacca Strait into South China Sea and into the Pacific. So, this is one important development which has happened under the Act East policy. As India has been more bold in its defense and security initiatives under Act East, Indian Navy has got access to Sabang port in Indonesia, which increases the operational range of the Indian Navy. We have also started carrying out many military exercises with these countries, with Vietnam, Thailand, then Singapore and Indonesia as well. And I was mentioning how we allow Singapore's armed forces to train in Indian facilities, right? So that is the kind of close military ties that I've built. And Indian Navy constantly deploys into South China Sea and into the Pacific in the last at least 10-15 years. So this is a major improvement in India's military posture. Just like China projects its military power into Indian Ocean, India also has been projecting its naval influence into South China Sea and into the Pacific. So these have been the priority areas, including investments, even technological cooperation, especially the field of cybersecurity, mobile and internet communication, and even with regard to critical emerging technologies. New initiatives have been taken up, and these initiatives were reiterated when Prime Minister Modi recently attended the ASEAN East Asia Summit. This is the special partnership that we share with ASEAN countries, right? So now we have understood what's our focus with ASEAN group, and we have also covered the important countries of the region. So let's wrap up and close this chapter soon by looking at the few other important groupings. Within the ASEAN setup, there is a separate defense initiative called ADMM and ADMM Plus. It stands for ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting to promote security relations amongst ASEAN countries with special focus on maritime security. The ASEAN group has this platform where the 10 defense ministers of ASEAN countries meet, and this is called ADMM, ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting. The meeting usually takes place once in 2 years, usually, but sometimes it can be held every year as well. So after the ADMM meeting is held, some of the closest partners of ASEAN are also invited for a ADMM Plus meeting. So this includes the 10 defense ministers of ASEAN countries, along with Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea, Russia, and the US. These are the closest partners of ASEAN. All right, these 8 countries, which are the major powers of the Indo-Pacific, from Russia to US, then Australia, New Zealand, China, South Korea, Japan, India. All these are the major Indo-Pacific military powers. So these 8 countries are also invited, and their defense ministers also participate. So totally 18 defense ministers come together to hold the ADMM Plus meeting. In the latest edition of ADMM Plus meeting, India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh participated and pointed out India's concerns in the security domain. He raised India's concerns about counterterrorism. He pointed out the increasing risk of organized crime, radicalism in the Indo-Pacific. And he also pointed out Chinese aggression. He pointed out how some countries violate international rules and threaten others' integrity and sovereignty. That was a clear message to China as well. So India uses this platform to push all the security concerns India has. And it's a very important platform within the ASEAN and Indo-Pacific region to look at defense and security issues. All right, so for prelims, you should know what these platforms are: ADMM and ADMM Plus. Please remember the countries which are part of it. In ADMM, it's only ASEAN countries and their 10 defense ministers. In ADMM Plus, the 10 ASEAN defense ministers plus the defense ministers of these 8 major Indo-Pacific powers. Next, another important grouping of the region is the MGC, the Mekong Ganga Cooperation. It's a sub-regional grouping within ASEAN, within Southeast Asia. There is a sub-regional group called MGC, the Mekong Ganga Cooperation. It's named after the two major rivers of Asia, the Ganga River, which represents India, obviously, and the Mekong River, that represents the CLMVT countries. CLMVT countries. This is a acronym which India uses frequently, which refers to the Mekong Delta countries, that is Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand. We refer to them as the CLMVT countries. They're also called as the Mekong Delta countries because the Mekong River is their lifeline. The Mekong River is a major Southeast Asian river. It originates in China, flows into Myanmar, and then flows through Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, and parts of Thailand as well. So for this entire region, the Mekong is absolutely critical, just like the Ganga is critical for India. So these countries are also called Mekong Delta countries. This region is also called the Indo-China region. That's a colonial term, as it is sandwiched between India and China, this region. It was even called Indo-China. All right. So please know these geographical references and terms, again, for a map-based question in prelims. So for setting up closer ties with these Mekong countries, India has set up a separate platform called MGC, the Mekong Ganga Cooperation. It was established in 2000 and focuses mainly on tourism, culture, education, transport, and communications. These are some priority areas, and India is a development partner for these countries. We have even given several lines of credit to offer concessional loans to fund development projects in these countries. For example, we have funded few education and healthcare initiatives. We are working on better transportation and connectivity through IMT Trilateral Highway. There is a proposed railway link, the Delhi-Hanoi parallel railway link. Right? We were discussing this under India-Myanmar. So all these initiatives have been pushed by India. Then with regard to culture and tourism, India's Archaeological Survey has renovated several important sites, including Angkor Wat and other collection of Hindu Buddhist temples in Cambodia and across the region. Understood? So this is a major initiative of India, but this grouping is not very, very important. You should just know what it is, which countries are part of it. You don't have to worry too much about this organization because MGC has kind of lost its relevance as we engage with these countries anyways with ASEAN group. But sometimes after the ASEAN East Asia Summit, India does have separate meetings with CLMVT countries. We do hold a dialogue at MGC platform as well. It does help us connect with Mekong countries. But again, it's only for prelims, not for mains, or you don't have to go into the details of the group. Just be familiar with what is this organization, which countries are part of it, and what is its objective. Is that clear? The focus is on improving economic, cultural ties, helping out each other, especially India, right? Provides concessional loans for developmental projects. We are looking to improve connectivity and trade. So these are some basic priorities of the MGC. Next, the other important grouping is the East Asia Summit. Every year after ASEAN Summit, it is followed by East Asia Summit. They both happen parallelly. Is that clear? That's why it's called East Asia Summit, ASEAN Summit, or ASEAN East Asia Summit. They are held back to back in the same country within a couple of days. And this important grouping of Indo-Pacific was established in the year 2005. And India is one of the important members of this grouping. Is that clear? The membership of East Asia Summit is exactly the same as ADMM Plus. If you can remember the members of ADMM Plus, it's the same countries which are part of it. So you might ask, what's the difference? The difference is that ADMM Plus is a meeting of defense ministers only, whereas East Asia Summit is a summit level interaction between prime ministers and presidents of these 18 countries. Is that clear? East Asia Summit has a set agenda. There are specific priority areas which are identified based on which countries discuss and consult each other. So these 18 countries meet at the leadership level, at the level of head of states, head of governments. So prime ministers and presidents participate. That's why it's a summit level interaction. Whereas ADMM Plus is just a defense ministers meeting. That is the primary difference between the two. So these 18 countries, 10 ASEAN countries, and India, Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and US, they get together every year to discuss the key security, economic, and even political issues of the Indo-Pacific region with focus on Southeast Asia. You can also take a look at the map that depicts the members of East Asia Summit for a better idea. Right? So since its establishment, the East Asia Summit has been focusing on these priority areas: environment and energy, education, finance, global health issues and pandemic diseases, disaster management, and ASEAN connectivity. Along with that, they are focusing on some security issues as well, like organized crime and counterterrorism. So these are the priority areas of East Asia Summit. They are looking at climate change, the blue economy model. These have been made priorities under East Asia Summit. All right. Even clean, renewable energy. Clean and renewable energy has become a focus of East Asia Summit. Apart from this, it's connectivity, education, the whole financial stability of the region. And since the region is affected by infectious diseases that can cause epidemics and pandemics, they have a platform for that. As the region is affected by multiple disasters, right, there's a separate platform for disaster management cooperation where they can support each other with HADR assistance. So these are the focus areas of East Asia Summit. So India actively participates in these meetings. We attend the ASEAN East Asia Summit every year at the level of the Prime Minister. These are summit level interactions. So the Prime Minister travels to all these countries where it is held and attends these important summits. Now coming to the last topic, RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. This today is the world's largest FTA, the world's largest free trade agreement. Is that clear? RCEP is the world's largest FTA, which is centered around the Indo-Pacific. It consists of 15 major economies of the Indo-Pacific, including your 10 ASEAN members, and as well as the 5 FTA partners of ASEAN, with whomever ASEAN has signed FTAs. That is Australia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. So these 15 countries have signed the RCEP Free Trade Agreement in 2019, and it has become operational since 2020. Now you might ask, how come India is not part of it? Because we have studied that India is also an FTA partner of ASEAN. Even we have an FTA with ASEAN, right? We were actually part of the negotiations. When the negotiations started in 2012 at the Cambodia summit of ASEAN, India was also part of the negotiations, meaning 16 countries were part of it. We continued the negotiations all the way until 2019. Multiple rounds of talks were held over this free trade agreement, and this would have clearly been the world's largest FTA. If you take India into account as well, it would account for almost half the global population close to 3.5 to 4 billion people with 39% of the global GDP. That was the scale and reach of this free trade agreement. But India has quit RCEP in 2019 due to certain reasons. Due to differences that developed during negotiations, India has quit RCEP, but other countries, the other 15, they have gone ahead and signed the FTA. So even without India, it still remains the world's largest free trade agreement, accounting for 30% of the global population and almost 30% of the global GDP. Now, this is a major initiative, and it was primarily led by China and ASEAN countries. They have primarily given leadership to this free trade negotiation, and it brings together all the major economies of the Indo-Pacific. So we should understand, why did India quit RCEP? What could be the reason? Right? There might be a prelims question, maybe a 10-mark mains question as well. So let's take a look. The primary reason why India quit RCEP is because, on one hand, India's economy had started to slow down by 2018. There was growing concern about the rising trade deficit, which was against India, right? The trade deficit was acting against India with most of our trading partners, especially with major economies like China, the ASEAN countries, and others. They were registering a big trade surplus, whereas there would be a huge deficit on India's part. This highlighted the weakness in our domestic manufacturing and production, right? We weren't able to compete with manufacturing powerhouses like China, right? Even our agriculture was struggling with certain countries, leading to a major trade deficit for India. So, accompanied by this, we had already experienced a issue with ASEAN FTA, right, which we studied in the last class. I had mentioned how the ASEAN FTA led to a flood of cheap imports in certain categories that has affected domestic producers and manufacturers in India. So several domestic producers in the country were deeply concerned about RCEP. Indian farmers and farmers associations, and even MSME industry and the industry organizations, the industry associations, they were all deeply concerned about this FTA. So they lobbied with the Modi government. They put pressure on the Modi government to protect domestic interests, to protect the domestic industry by staying out of this free trade agreement. Even though it aligns perfectly with our Act East and Indo-Pacific policy, ideally we should have been a part of it, because there are many friendly countries which are part of this free trade area, and India would have also benefited in certain regards. But the deep concerns regarding trade deficit, the possibility of flood of cheap imports, right, which would compromise our domestic producers, manufacturers, our industries, our farmers. This is what kept India out of the deal. And India was also concerned about China, which could use the FTA route to again flood India with imports. This has always remained a concern for India, right? We have studied under India-China how we have an import dependency on China. We are trying to reduce the dependency, become more self-sufficient, right? But all these concerns regarding trade deficit, the flood of imports which could affect our domestic industry, is what led India to stay away from RCEP. Also, we had some major differences with the advanced economies in the group. In RCEP, there are advanced developed countries as well, like Japan. You have South Korea, then Australia and New Zealand. All these are very friendly countries to India. But the problem is, as they are advanced economies, they have a major advantage in certain key sectors. For example, in let's say in few technologies, right, electronics, automobiles, right, and even in agriculture sector like dairy, animal husbandry. Some of these countries have a huge advantage over India. So India was worried that the developed advanced economies, right, they would again dominate the Indian market, affecting our domestic production. India was also concerned about the higher standards expected by the developed nations. If you sign FTAs with developed countries, they will always expect higher hygiene and sanitation standards. This becomes a non-tariff barrier. Developing countries like India might struggle to maintain the higher standards of hygiene, sanitary and phytosanitary standards. So when it comes to your food products, agricultural commodities, even your pharmaceutical products, you'll have to maintain these higher standards of hygiene, sanitary, phytosanitary standards, which imposes a higher cost on our domestic producers. They expect higher standards of, labor code, environmental standards, intellectual property rights, which again becomes difficult for a developing nation like India to implement. They expect very strict environmental laws, more progressive labor codes, strict implementation of intellectual property rights. So all these are challenges for a developing nation like India, right? If we try to implement them, the cost for our domestic industry will go up. It will affect our domestic producers. So because of all these concerns and the differences that existed, India decided to quit RCEP in 2019. Is that clear? But the door is always open. The other countries, they know that India brings a lot of value, right? They look at the size of the Indian market. They know India can be a major player and contributor to the group. So they have said India is always welcome to come back. But as of now, we are out of RCEP. Is that clear? So please make a note of these key points. You can get a basic question in mains asking what is RCEP? Why has India quit RCEP? So this completes my discussion on Southeast and East Asia, which covers a major part of the Indo-Pacific. Right? So now let's take up Module 10, Part A, and continue this discussion on Indo-Pacific. I'll take you to another region. We'll look at the South Pacific, which has started gaining a lot of attention in the last 1.5 years. We'll examine our ties with Australia, and we shall also take a look at the Pacific Island countries, which have been gaining a lot of attention in global geopolitics. From China to India to US, all these major Indo-Pacific powers, they're trying to attract the Pacific Island countries. Some major developments have happened in the last 15 to 18 months, which makes this region extremely important as part of the Indo-Pacific. So let's take a look. Let's understand these important relations as well. So before we start with Australia, I want you guys to first understand where exactly is the South Pacific located, right? Which are the major island territories present in the Pacific region, in the North and South Pacific region. In this map, you can clearly see Southeast Asia over here, right? Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, etc. You can see Australia and New Zealand. I'm sure you'll be familiar with these locations. So to the east, the northeast of Australia, extending all the way towards North America and South America, right? This is where you have your Pacific Island countries. Right next to Australia and New Zealand, in the southern Pacific and also in some parts of North Pacific, you have these small islands, very small island nations, and they collectively form your Pacific Island countries. We abbreviate them as PICs, Pacific Island countries. It includes territories like Palau, Papua New Guinea. Recently, you might remember Prime Minister Modi paid a very, very important visit to Papua New Guinea. He visited Port Moresby, met with the leaders of Papua New Guinea, held a meeting of the Pacific Island countries as well. Right? We have a separate platform for engaging with these countries called FIPIC, or the Forum for India Pacific Island Countries. So we work very closely with these countries, including Micronesia, Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands over here, Nauru. The Solomon Islands is extremely important. I'll tell you why. Then Vanuatu, Tuvalu, Caledonia, Fiji is another important country. Tonga, Kiribati, the Cook Islands, and the French Polynesia, right? And few other territories as well, like Samoa and few other territories which are mentioned over here. So you can see in the same region the Hawaiian Islands over here, which is a major island territory of the United States. Japan has been a major influence in this region along with the United States. Australia, New Zealand, obviously, are major influences. And US even has its own territories and military bases in the region. At territories like Guam, which is near Australia, between Australia and Papua New Guinea, there is this small island called Guam, roughly over here. So this is where US has a major military base. It's a American territory, a small island that US has here, right? It has set up a major military base. It has leased this island and set up this military base, which allows US to dominate this region. So traditionally, it is the Western democracies which have dominated the region, right? French Polynesia is French territories. The French or the France overseas territories in the Pacific. UK as well, New Zealand, they all have few territories here that are spread out across this region. So Western democracies, starting with Australia, New Zealand, then US, Japan, and France and UK, they have been very, very dominant in this region. But all of a sudden, they're facing a major challenge from China. China has reached out to the Indo-Pacific in a very, very big way. Recently, Chinese foreign minister, he visited all the countries. Not even a single country was left out. He visited all the countries. It has stepped up its engagement with all these nations, and it is actively pushing its Belt and Road Initiative into this region. China wants to execute important connectivity projects, build important ports and airports, and it wants to enhance its security engagement in the region. This is very clear, very evident, because recently China has signed a security deal with the Solomon Islands. That's why I told you Solomon Islands is very, very important. The Solomon Islands has become the first country in the region to sign a security deal with China. This might potentially allow China to bring its naval ships, the PLA Navy, PLA Air Force, can easily project their military influence now into the Pacific as they are getting access to the ports and runways in Solomon Islands. China is clearly interested not just in expanding its connectivity commercial projects, but it wants to get a military influence in the region. It is considering similar military deals, security deals with many other countries as well. All right. So India also plays a role. Even we have a major interest in this region, right? We are close to Papua New Guinea. We are getting very close to some other countries like Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and others. Fiji has historically been close to India because it has a very, very large Indian community. They were all taken here as indentured laborers by the British. A large percentage of the population in Fiji, they are of Indian origin. You find very strong Indian cultural influences in Fiji even today, right? Hinduism is very prevalent. The Hindi language is spoken widely. Indian customs are still celebrated here because many families here, they're all descendants of Indian laborer families that were settled by the British, right? Most of them were British colonies at one point. So we are very, very close to Fiji, and we have a lot of cultural influence and economic influence across the region, even though it's far away from India. Then Cook Islands is a tax haven. It's often in news for being misused by money laundering networks. They push, money which is laundered, black money which is laundered through Cook Islands. France also has territories here along with UK, thus making this a region of geopolitical competition. This has become a emerging area of competition because, as you can see, there is a massive exclusive economic zone of these countries which is waiting to be explored and exploited. This is the primary driving factor for all these powers. They are all interested in the resources present here. These small island nations, even though their territories are very small, they all have very large EEZs. You can see here the dotted boxes. They are depicting the exclusive economic zone of these island nations. They have such a vast EEZ, which is blessed with hydrocarbon reserves, fisheries, and even precious minerals. So, this is what drives all these powers to compete for influence. Traditionally, it was Western democracies led by US and Australia and New Zealand that dominated the region. But now they are facing stiff competition. US, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, France, and UK. They are facing stiff competition from China, and it has led US to renew its attention towards the Pacific Island countries. So, in the middle of this ongoing competition, India is also a major player in this geopolitical game. We are also pushing our own influence. We have funded many of these countries, provided loans to them, taken up many key projects to assist these countries in their development. Right? Even we are trying to do whatever is possible in our own small way. We may not be able to compete with China's economic and military might, but within India's capacity, we are also playing a big role. And this is helping India to protect its own influence in the region. So it's in this context that we should take a more detailed look at India-Australia relations and our ties with the Pacific Island countries. This again will be a short discussion. We will touch upon all the important areas and we'll wrap up Indo-Pacific. See, we have studied our ties with Japan, right? We understood how Japan is strategically vital for India in the Indo-Pacific. Similarly, Australia is another Indo-Pacific power which is crucial for India. As a fellow Quad member, Australia shares similar concerns about China. China, Australia also have a complicated, problematic relationship. Australia has a lot of economic dependency. Over the decades, Australia has become heavily dependent on the Chinese economy, especially Chinese imports and investments have become crucial for Australian economy. And as you know, China misuses this economic leverage for geopolitical gains. Is that clear? Australia is firmly aligned with the US, right? They have very close defense and intelligence relations. They are already part of the Five Eyes Alliance, the Five Eyes Intelligence Initiative, right? Which includes the US, Canada, then UK, Australia, and New Zealand. These five Western democracies, they have formed an intelligence gathering initiative called the Five Eyes Alliance. They have the ability to carry out electronic interception, to intercept any form of communication. They can intercept the whole of internet, right? From submarine cables to satellite communication, everything, anything which is electronically transmitted can be intercepted by the Five Eyes Alliance. They have very close military relations with each other, right? And recently, they've even launched the AUKUS initiative. They've launched the AUKUS initiative that includes Australia, UK, and US, where UK and US have agreed to transfer nuclear submarine technology to Australia. This is clearly a coalition that they are forming against China's military aggression in the region. Because, see, Australia has this economic dependency, and as it is aligned with Western countries, as it shares very close defense and intelligence relations with them, China keeps targeting Australia. It uses the economic leverage, puts pressure on Australia, and undermines Australian influence in the Pacific. So, this has led to a geopolitical standoff between China and Australia. Right? So, Australia feels that China is a threat. then China's aggression in South China Sea and beyond affects Australian interests as well. So as Australia felt threatened, these countries, they wanted to give Quad a military angle, which we discussed in the last class. US, Japan, and Australia were very interested to give a military angle to the Quad so that it could become a military alliance against China. But it was India which said no to the militarization of Quad. India made it clear that it will never be comfortable with any militarization of the grouping because we are never part of any military clubs and military alliances. So Quad remains a diplomatic grouping. It has been diversified into other diplomatic areas of cooperation. But however, Australia, US, they went ahead and formed AUKUS with UK, and they've agreed to transfer nuclear submarine technology to Australia so Australia can counter the Chinese naval deployments in the region. China is very aggressively deploying its naval ships, submarines, and even nuclear powered submarines into the Pacific. So this is a threat to Australia and its interests, right? It undermines American military influence as well. So UK and US have agreed under AUKUS to transfer nuclear submarine technology to Australia so Australia can use the nuclear powered submarines to counter the Chinese naval presence. So all these developments which are happening increases the importance of Australia to India as well. Now that Australia has all these issues with China, India seeks out a closer strategic relationship in the Indo-Pacific. As we have common interests, right? We seek out a closer strategic partnership to protect our core security interests and economic interests in the region. We may not be comfortable in joining military alliances, but we don't hesitate from forming strategic partnerships where we come together diplomatically and put pressure on China. And it's not just the China factor which brings India Australia together. Apart from China as well, we have a deep rooted economic and cultural relationship. Since many decades, there is close political relationship accompanied with very close economic cultural ties between India and Australia. As you know, thousands of Indian students prefer Australian universities to study, right? Several lakh Indian professionals and workers, they find lucrative employment opportunities in Australia, and many of them have settled in Australia and taken up Australian citizenship as well. At least in the last 40 years, we have seen a major rise in Indian diaspora, and today the Indian community in Australia has become a major contributor to this relationship. So apart from the strong Indian community comprising of students, workers, etc., we share very close cultural ties, starting with cricket, right? Such soft power tools can play a very important role in driving foreign relations. So there are many areas where India, Australia come together, right? From sports to culture, economic ties, technology cooperation, strategic ties. In all these areas, we have become very, very close to each other, dependent on each other as well. And our economic ties are really booming in the last few years. We want to build this up further. We want to take forward this strong economic relationship. And recently, we have signed a trade agreement with Australia, which we are going to study now. So, India, Australia are seeking close defense relations to protect their interests in Indo-Pacific. They have several common defense and security interests, right? So, this is what drives India-Australia relationship. So, let's take a look at some of the major developments in the last few years. One important development is that in 2014, we signed a civil nuclear deal with Australia. Now, this is extremely crucial because Australia has the world's largest uranium reserves. Please write down this point. Australia has the world's largest uranium reserves, and it's the world's largest producer, the second largest producer. It's the second largest producer of uranium. Is that clear? Now, why is this critical? It is critical for India because we don't have enough uranium reserves. we have very, very limited uranium deposits in the country. It's not enough to drive our civilian nuclear program to generate electricity. India has a lot of ambitious plans for nuclear energy. We have given a very high share for nuclear energy in our energy basket. We want to transition away from thermal power. Right now, majority of electricity in India, almost 58 to 60% of electricity is generated through thermal sources, that is coal based power plants. Is that clear? As you know, coal is a fossil fuel contributing to emissions and pollution, right? It's also inefficient as well. So we want to move away from our coal dependency, reduce our dependency on thermal power, transition to cleaner renewable forms of energy like nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is cleaner, right? It's seen as a solution to tackle emissions. So India has pioneered the technology. Now, I'm not talking about the weapons program. I'm talking about the civilian program for electricity generation. Problem is we are deficient in uranium. To drive our three-stage nuclear program, right? Uranium supplies are critical for us. So Australia can become a reliable supplier in the future, right? That's why the civil nuclear deal with the world's largest reserve of uranium is absolutely important. It's the second largest producer as well. Is that clear? So, any idea which is the largest producer of uranium in the world? Which country is the largest producer? Which country is the largest producer of uranium? Does anyone know? China, USA, Afghanistan. Janvi and Satya Prasad and Akanksha have given the right answer. Very good. The correct answer is Kazakhstan. The Central Asian country of Kazakhstan is the world's largest producer of uranium. It has the second largest reserves of uranium after Australia. Is that clear? With the second largest reserves, it has become the largest producer. Even with Kazakhstan, that's why we have signed a civil nuclear deal. India has a separate civil nuclear deal with Kazakhstan as well. These deals will come into operation once we manage to become a member of the NSG, the Nuclear Suppliers Group. Now, can you see why China is blocking our entry into NSG? It's because India doesn't want to emerge as a major nuclear power. It doesn't want India to leverage nuclear energy to drive our economic growth. It doesn't want our nuclear program to get such global recognition. Because without being a member of NSG, these countries cannot export uranium to India. Right? Because nuclear commerce, any trade, any export of nuclear material, nuclear technology is regulated by this export control regime. Right? NSG is an export control regime regulating these exports. So any export of nuclear material and nuclear technology has to be approved by the NSG. And it can happen only amongst NSG members. Right? If it is being sold to non-NSG countries, it needs a special approval. So none of the nuclear deals will come into operation for India without becoming a member of NSG. And that's the prime reason why China is blocking our entry to NSG. So Australia is crucial here with regard to our energy security. It's very important with regard to our energy security. In the future, it can be a major supplier of uranium for India. And even now, it's playing a role by being a major supplier of coal to India. Do you know Australia has a lot of coal reserves? It's one of the major suppliers of coal. In India, the coal available is not of great quality. And whatever is available, we haven't exploited it efficiently because of the inefficiencies of Coal India Limited. So we depend on coal imports mainly to drive electricity generation. Right? Most of the electricity which is coming is dependent on imported coal, again creating a dependency for us. So Australian coal supplies are also crucial. And this is how Australia is playing a role in our energy security. It's a major coal supplier to India. Is that clear? Indian companies like Adani Group have invested in coal projects as well in Australia. Do you know which are the other major coal suppliers to India? Apart from Australia, which other country is a significant coal supplier to India? Our electricity generation depends on these two countries, which are the major coal suppliers to us. Very good. Indonesia. Shovik and Dipankar have given the right answer. Of course, we procure coal from many others as well, even from South Africa and Argentina and many others. But the major suppliers are Australia and Indonesia. Indonesia is a major supplier. Got it? So, our ties with Australia is critical for our energy security, both for thermal power and even for nuclear power. So, the civil nuclear deal is absolutely important. Then, as part of our increasing military relations in the Indo Pacific, we have a joint military exercise called AUS Index between India and Australia, which is held every year. And we are also part of the Quad, which is enforcing the rules based order in the Indo Pacific, region. And we also participate in the Malabar Naval Exercise. This year's edition of Malabar Exercise was hosted by Australia itself in Sydney. All right. Australia was re-invited by India, re-invited in 2020. Remember, we had discussed that in 2007, we had invited Australia, Japan, and Singapore once to make this a multilateral naval exercise. But after China retaliated and protested, we had scaled down the Malabar exercise, brought it back to a bilateral naval exercise only with the US. But after China started getting aggressive again, after it increased border tensions with India, in 2015, we had invited Japan back into Malabar. Since then, Japan became a permanent member. And in 2020, after the Ladakh clashes, Australia was also re-invited. And now Australia also has become a permanent member of Malabar. So every year, these four countries, India, US, Japan, and Australia, right? They get together for this major naval exercise. And this time it was held off the coast of Sydney. During these major military exercises, Indian Navy and Indian Air Force, they have used few strategic islands of Australia, such as Christmas Island and the Cooks or Keeling Island. I had showed you this location in a previous class while looking at the Indo-Pacific region. I had used a map of the Indo-Pacific to point out these important islands of Australia. The Christmas Island and the Cooks or Keeling Island. It's to the south of Indonesia. All right, it's to the south of Indonesia and to the west of Australia. It's basically in the southwestern part of Indian Ocean. That is where these strategic islands of Australia are located. And Australia has military facilities on these islands. So recently, Indian vessels, Indian aircraft, they landed over here. Few aircrafts of Indian Air Force, including transport and fighter jets, and even Indian naval vessels, they reached Christmas Island and Cook's Keeling Island. This is very significant because we have a logistics exchange agreement between the two countries, which means India, Australia can provide such logistical support for each other's armed forces and give access to the military bases of each other. So that is why this recent development becomes important. Similarly, Australian forces, which also deploy into the Indian Ocean, they can access Indian military facilities. They can access our naval bases, air bases for refueling, resupplies, and other logistical support. Similarly, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force can extend their operational reach. We can start entering the Pacific, North and South Pacific more frequently with support from Australia and even from Japan. Right? With both Japan and Australia, we have these logistics exchange agreement. Even India, US have similar logistics exchange agreement. So this is a very, very important part of our relationship. Right? The Quad countries, they have this logistics exchange mechanism with each other, which increases the operational range of their respective armed forces. And they also have the 2+2 ministerial dialogue with each other. All the Quad countries, they have 2+2 ministerial dialogue. Just like India, Japan, have set up a 2+2 dialogue. A similar 2+2 dialogue exists between India and Australia, and even with India and US. Similarly, Japan, US, Australia, even they have 2+2 ministerial dialogues between them. So the Quad countries, they have a 2+2 ministerial dialogue as well. Under the Quad grouping, all the defense foreign ministers of these four countries come together to discuss key foreign policy and security issues. So that is another important part of our relationship, right? Under the Quad, it's not just the prime ministers and presidents of these four countries who come together, but even the defense and foreign ministers, because they all have 2+2 arrangement. They all come together, meet regularly to discuss the key foreign policy and security issues. Now, one major concern which has come up recently, a major security concern has come up for India. You should know about this. There have been disturbing developments in Australia which really bothers India. Any idea what I'm referring to? What kind of security concern am I referring to? Recently, there have been several adverse developments. Very good. It's the rise of Khalistan activities. As you have noticed, in the last few years, a deliberate attempt is being made to revive the dormant Khalistan movement. Several old Khalistani terror groups are trying to reactivate themselves. India sees the involvement of Pakistan's ISI behind all these developments, along with the Khalistani terror outfits. These Khalistani terror groups, which are largely based out of other countries, they're mainly present abroad, and they do have significant support within some radical sections of the Sikh diaspora. See, by and large, the Sikh community is very peaceful. They are pro-India. They have nothing to do with Khalistan extremism. But some of the radical members of the diaspora, right, they've started backing the Khalistan movement, and there is a clear Pakistani involvement. And an attempt has been made to revive this dormant movement. It was a dead movement. We had killed this movement in 1990s. India had decimated Khalistan groups, wiped out all the support, and effectively we had tackled the threat. But since 2010, in the last 13 years, all right, it's not just in the last 1 or 2 years. You might be hearing about this now, but this is happening from 13 years. Since 2010, deliberate attempts are being made in many foreign countries to revive the Khalistan movement against India. Wherever the Sikh diaspora has a strong presence, starting with Canada, United States, UK, Italy, even in France, then Germany and Belgium, then Australia and New Zealand, and also in some Southeast Asian and West Asian countries. For example, in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, right, the Sikh diaspora population has gone up. In Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines as well, the Sikh diaspora has gone up. So in all these countries, we have seen activities related to the Khalistan movement. The biggest concern is in Western countries like Canada, US, even Italy and Australia as well. Recently, India targeted a Khalistani outfit called Waris Punjab De, which had become notorious in Punjab. Its so-called leader, Amritpal Singh, emerged as the leader of this extremist outfit, and he was openly advocating Khalistani extremism. So when India targeted Amritpal Singh and Waris Punjab De, there was a major counter reaction within the radical sections abroad, and multiple attacks took place against Indian missions abroad. The Indian embassies, Indian consulates and high commissions in several countries were brought under attack by Khalistani extremists. You all would have seen how the Indian flag was brought down at the Indian High Commission in London, right? Similarly, in San Francisco, our consulate was attacked by Khalistani extremists. This has happened in many other parts of the world, and particularly in Australia. A strong Khalistani presence is being noted in Brisbane, Melbourne, and in Sydney. Lot of pro-Khalistani activities are being noticed. Several Hindu temples have been defaced. Indian diplomats are being threatened. Indian missions are being attacked. Right? This is the rising concern, and this has even led to clashes between pro-Khalistan and pro-India outfits. If these Khalistani organizations are carrying out these attacks and protests and rallies, they are being met with counter protests by the pro-India groups. The other Indian students and workers who are pro-India, they have conducted counter protests and rallies. It has led to clashes between these different organizations as well. So this has become a major concern for India, and India is keeping a close watch on these developments. Not just the Ministry of External Affairs, but even India's intelligence agency, RAW, has stepped up its surveillance and covert operations in Australia to target the Khalistani outfits. So this is where we expect close cooperation from Australia. And unlike others, unlike Canada, Australia is very different. It is very, very supportive and cooperative with India. It has promised all support to India. Australia has taken a firm, open stand against Khalistani movement. Whereas the Canadian government under Justin Trudeau, as you have seen, has been in a way nurturing and encouraging the Khalistani extremists. And instead of targeting the terror groups, it's targeting India. Right? Even though Canada was an ally, a close friend, the relationship is destroyed today all because of Canada and the politics in Canada. Right? Many Canadian parties have tried to please the Sikh diaspora and the Khalistani members because they form a key part of the electorate. They depend on their votes. And many members, radical members of the Sikh diaspora in Canada, are very influential politically and economically. So as a result, many Canadian parties, including Trudeau's party, right, they're all in a way shielding the Khalistani extremists, just like they did back in 1980s. We had faced similar threats in 1980s as well, where many Khalistani terrorists hid in Canada. So today, our relations with Canada is almost destroyed because of the Khalistani movement and how Canada has nurtured and supported and encouraged the extremists. Whereas Australia is the exact opposite. As soon as these developments happened, it has given complete support to India. There is close intelligence cooperation between the two sides. Australian intelligence agencies are very closely collaborating with India's RAW and MEA and sharing all information and helping us counter the Khalistani extremists operating in Australia. Right? So this has become a major concern. You can't neglect or ignore this. There have been repeated incidents. Indian consulate in Brisbane, in Melbourne were attacked. All right. Even in Sydney, there were pro-Khalistani rallies that were held. Then several Hindu temples were defaced. Indian diplomats have been threatened. So these are very serious developments, which points towards a possible terror risk where attacks might start happening in Australia. Right? So that is why India, Australia are working together. This is another important part of our security partnership. Now, apart from these strategic economic ties and defense and security relations, we have recently signed a trade agreement. A very important trade agreement was signed last year. It's called ECTA, the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. This key deal was signed last year, and parallelly, we have FTA talks going on with Australia. We are considering a full-fledged free trade agreement. Those FTA negotiations are also going on. But before the FTA could be concluded, a limited trade agreement has been signed and worked out. For few limited commodities and limited sectors, a separate trade agreement has been worked out for now. In the future, we might even sign a full-fledged free trade agreement. Now, this comes as a major development because last year, we have signed two such trade agreements. We signed a FTA after a decade with a very important partner. Any idea with which country we have signed an FTA last year? We signed a full-fledged FTA with a very, very important economic partner. Very good. The United Arab Emirates. We will study this under West Asia. All right. Apart from this important FTA we signed last year, we signed this limited trade agreement as well with Australia. This was the first time we were signing such trade agreements after the India-ASEAN FTA. Right? I told you, right? We took a break from FTAs because of the bitter experience we had with ASEAN. That's why we quit RCEP as well. After a long gap, the first FTA we signed was with UAE last year, followed by a ECTA, a limited trade agreement with Australia. Now we are negotiating a full-fledged FTA as well with Australia. And under this trade agreement, we are planning to boost our trade to $45 to $50 billion in the next 5 years. We basically want to double the trade volume. Current trade volume is around $25 to $27 billion. We want to increase exports from both the sides, benefit certain key industries on both the sides, which could double the trade volume to almost $50 billion in next 5 years, which gives great opportunities for creating jobs in both the countries. Many capital intensive sectors will benefit, where more labor has to be employed, especially labor intensive industries will benefit on the Indian side. The agreement has been designed to favor labor intensive sectors for India, and this will create millions of jobs in the Indian market, along with creating jobs in the Australian market. Both India and Australia have certain advantages, right, in some key sectors, and we are looking to help out each other. So we have selected a list of products where 85% of these products will become duty-free. Is that clear? Similar duty-free access will be extended by the other side as well. So in this select category, majority of the products will be given duty-free access into the Indian market. Out of all the exports we have from Australia to India, almost 85% of it is going to become duty-free, almost zero duty, meaning no taxes. Whatever prices are there in the Australian market, the same price will be available here with the transportation costs involved. Similarly, most of the Indian exports to Australia are going to become duty-free. This is the arrangement that has been created. The tariff barriers are being reduced. The tariff barriers are being almost removed for select category of products and commodities. It will benefit many key sectors. It's going to benefit important sectors like agriculture, animal husbandry, right? From Australia especially, which is a leader in the dairy industry, a leader in the animal husbandry industry. Certain commodities have been allowed into the Indian market. Like, for example, certain categories of meat, certain processed items of milk, they will be allowed into India. But just milk and other regular products will not be allowed, because that could affect India's dairy industry. As Australia has a major advantage in the dairy and animal husbandry sector, milk and dairy products are restricted, with very few products being allowed. But other products, like few select meat categories, right, they will get a big boost into India. Australia is known for its high quality meat, and that will start being available in Indian markets. Then Australia is also an exporter of some machineries and engineering equipment in the food processing industry and some key sectors. This will see a big boost into India. Then even beverages, Australian beverages are very popular, right? Especially alcoholic beverages, Australian beer, wine, right? Australia is known for its vineyards. So these beverages, which are very expensive right now in India, will become duty free, and it will be available on the shelves. So this is a major push that Australian exports will get into India. Similarly, India will get preferential access, especially in labor intensive sectors like gems and jewelry. India is a global leader in gems and jewelry, right? Be it in making gold jewelry, the gems industry, even diamond cutting and polishing. India is a global leader in these sectors. So there are very big markets in these countries to explore. We will be getting duty-free access here. So gems, jewelry will benefit. Textiles and leather is another major sector for us. These are labor-intensive sectors where lakhs of people are employed in the garments industry, in the leather and footwear industry, right? Furniture, food, medical devices, automobiles. All these will be major sectors for us, including IT and IT services, healthcare, education, even media, gaming, audio, video services, media, then fintech and edtech. All these industries are going to benefit from the Indian side. So you will see a boost in export of goods and services from the Indian side. This will drive the creation of jobs, and both sides are hoping to create 10 million additional jobs in the two countries. So this is the close economic partnership which is being built along with relaxed visa norms for Indian students and professionals. Today it has become very easy for qualified Indians to apply for studies in Australian universities and also to find employment in the Australian market, right? So Australia has simplified the visa immigration norms, and Australian universities are tying up with Indian universities as well. This is another important part of our collaboration. Australian universities have collaborated with Indian universities today. They've been allowed to set up Indian campuses as well. Australian universities are coming to India. They can open local campuses in India, tie up with Indian universities, and create these exchange programs, driving closer relations between the two sides. But one important point about the ECTA is that whatever concerns we had about ASEAN FTA, they have been addressed under this ECTA with Australia. Remember, yesterday I pointed out that we had major concerns regarding rules of origin. Under ASEAN FTA, rules of origin requirement has not been provided. So as a result, third parties are misusing India ASEAN FTA to dump goods on India, especially from China. Chinese traders, Chinese exporters, as they face a trade barrier towards India. India keeps very high taxes towards China to limit the dumping of goods on India. So what they're doing, the Chinese traders, they're bypassing the trade barriers we have created. And through Southeast Asia, by misusing ASEAN FTA, they're dumping the goods on India. They're not supposed to enjoy the benefits of FTA. This is happening because there's no rules of origin requirement. If rules of origin requirement is added, then you'll know where the good came from. Where was it produced? Where was it assembled? What's the percentage of value addition that happened in different countries? So accordingly, you can set a threshold, and only domestically produced goods with a minimum percentage of domestic value addition can be given duty-free access into India. So this provision has been added under the ECTA. Is that clear? If third parties try to misuse this route, let's say a Chinese trader will try to use the Australian route to dump goods on India. And once we detect it, we can still levy anti-dumping duties. This option will be there. We can impose anti-dumping duties to protect the domestic market, to protect the domestic producers, and to block these cheap imports and ensure third parties don't misuse the trade route. We can impose anti-dumping duties if the minimum value addition requirement is not met. Minimum domestic value addition has to be proven by the exporters. They should prove what percentage of the good or the product was domestically produced in that country. Only if that minimal threshold criteria is met, only then it will enjoy duty-free access into India. And vice versa, even for Australia as well. Right? Indian exporters have to prove that a minimum part of it was produced in India. The threshold needed for a value addition has to be shown. Only then those goods will qualify for the duty-free access. So if there is any doubt that a third party is misusing the trade deal, both sides can levy anti-dumping duties to protect their economies. There is also a mandatory review and dispute settlement mechanism, which was missing under ASEAN. Right? I mentioned yesterday that there is no review, no dispute settlement under ASEAN FTA. This is a major concern for us. But with Australia, we have ensured that these provisions are included. There is a mandatory review after 15 years of implementation. We will take a look how the deal has worked, and accordingly, we can make changes, create a course correction, and any disputes can be brought up as well at a trade dispute settlement platform being created under the trade agreement. So these are the important provisions in the trade agreement, which is different from our FTA with ASEAN, right? It also shows the maturity in India-Australia relations and how our ties are improving with Australia. Apart from the close political, cultural, and security defense relations, even economic relations are booming, and we hope to double the trade volume in the next 5 years. So Japan and Australia, they are like two corners of the Indo-Pacific, which are crucial partners for India, right? That is why the country becomes very, very important. Now, coming to the last topic under Indo-Pacific, the Pacific Island countries, the PICs. So we already understood why Pacific Island countries are important, how China is playing a bigger role, how there is this competition between Western countries led by US and the rising Chinese influence. So India also has become a major player in the Pacific region. We have set up a dedicated forum for this purpose called the FIPIC, or the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation. Understood? This is an integral part of our Act East policy and the Indo-Pacific vision of India. Under the Indo-Pacific doctrine, we are looking to reach out to all corners of the Indo-Pacific, which includes the South Pacific as well. So this is an extension of our Act East policy, and India is getting closer to the Pacific Island countries through this forum. This forum was created in 2014. PM Modi met with the leaders of Pacific Islands Forum. These Pacific Island countries, around 14 to 18 of them, right? They have their own forum. So PM Modi met with these leaders at the United Nations, at UN General Assembly meeting, at the UNGA summit. PM Modi met with these leaders with the Pacific Island Forum, and following that, the FIPIC was established in 2014. All right. The first ever Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation Summit was also held in Fiji, given the close ties between India and Fiji. So this marked India's close engagement with the Pacific Island countries. And since then, we have made many investments in the Pacific region. We are also focusing on improving our cultural ties with the Indian diaspora that is very active in the region. Is that clear? In Fiji and few other countries here, you do have a strong Indian community. They're all descendants of Indian laborers who were transported by the British under the indentured labor system. So we are cultivating those close relations and building economic, strategic, and military ties as well in the region. Followed by this, the second FIPIC summit was held, hosted by India in Jaipur, right? So we work with 14 Pacific Island countries through this forum. We work with all these major island nations, which allows India as well to play a role in the South Pacific. In this ongoing geopolitical competition between Western countries and China, India is also inserting itself mainly with focus on resources and as well as security interests and cultural interests. This is part of the larger geopolitical game that goes on in the Indo-Pacific, right? If China can counter Indian interests across Indian Ocean, across South Asia, right? So can India counter Chinese interests as well, be it the Pacific, be it South China Sea, be it the North Pacific. So in all these areas, India is playing a major role. And this forum has become the key platform to drive this relationship. As these are small island countries, they are very vulnerable. All these countries are very vulnerable. They are prone to rising sea levels. They are threatened by climate change, right? So there is focus on more sustainable practices, renewable energy, disaster management, because they are going to be affected by extreme weather events which are driven by climate change. So they need help and assistance in disaster management. They need help in basic socio-economic development, in education, healthcare, agriculture. So this is where India wants to become a key partner for these countries. So this platform helps us to provide this assistance that the countries need and protect Indian interests as well and promote Indian influence in this region. So recently, the third FIPIC summit was held just a few weeks ago. It was hosted by Papua New Guinea at Port Moresby in May 2023. Is that clear? PM Modi participated in the summit. He visited Papua New Guinea after the Quad summit in Japan. Japan was hosting the Quad and the G7 summits earlier this year. So after participating in these meetings in Japan, India was invited for G7 as well. As a guest country, we were participating in G7 meetings as well. So after finishing the Quad and G7 meetings, PM Modi landed in Papua New Guinea to attend the third FIPIC summit. So this has further promoted our close relations, and we have announced many major initiatives, and you have to make a note of this. There can be a 10 marks question asking you to explain India's interest in the Pacific region and asking you to detail our ties with Pacific Island countries. We have launched a 12-point development program to help these small countries in the healthcare sector. For example, they have struggled during the pandemic. Many people here, they suffer from disabilities. So we want to help them with the Jaipur foot, which India is known for. Essentially the synthetic support which is given through the Jaipur foot, right, for people who are disabled, right? India is a leader in producing such limbs, such synthetic limbs, which can help the disabled people. So India wants to help these countries in combating diseases, in dealing with all healthcare challenges, including disability. We want to help them in the cyber domain, in the adoption of clean energy, in clean water, and supporting the local industries and agriculture. So a 12-point development program has been adopted at the summit, and India will be investing in a major hospital in Fiji. India will be investing few $1 million to set up a super specialty cardiology hospital in Fiji, along with dialysis units and sea ambulances in all the countries. Sea ambulances are critical here, right? So India will set up a major hospital in Fiji with mobile dialysis units and sea ambulances that can bring patients from all the Pacific Island countries to this hospital in Fiji. Right? So because transportation connectivity is a challenge here. So sea ambulances through seaplanes will be critical. And Jan Aushadhi centers will come up to provide affordable drugs, especially generic drugs produced in India. As you know, India is the pharmacy of the world. India is known as the pharmacy of the world. We are the world's largest producer of generic medicines and even vaccines. Right? Many developing, underdeveloped countries, they depend on India's pharma industry. Their healthcare sector depends on India. Like Africa, for example, India is the backbone of Africa's healthcare industry. Right? Our hospitals, our pharma industry, biotech industry, they are the backbone of Africa's healthcare system. Similarly, these small island nations as well, they need India's investments and India's medical expertise. So we are setting up this super specialty cardiology hospital with dialysis units, Jan Aushadhi centers, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Aushadhi centers, along with sea ambulances. This is a major drive by India. It's a mutually beneficial partnership. We don't look for unilateral relations. We don't look for one-sided relationships. The investments we are going to make will help the people here genuinely, right? It'll help improve the quality of healthcare, and that is what generates goodwill for India. We're also looking to support the small, medium industries present here by providing them easy credit, access to technology, and expertise to scale the small industries. Because we do have a lot of experience with the MSME sector, right? In India, MSME industry plays a critical role. It drives our exports, creates millions of jobs. So India has become a leader in MSME sector. We want to provide this assistance to the small and medium enterprises in these Pacific island countries. These countries, as they are very small, like Maldives, they are always affected by water scarcity. They don't have enough fresh water sources. They have very, very limited freshwater availability. Apart from little groundwater and few lakes here and there, they don't have any fresh water available, right? In such small countries, you'll not have any river as such. So they depend heavily on desalination. They take seawater, desalinate, and make it potable, which is used for drinking and other purposes. So India will be sharing desalination technology and will be providing funds as well to set up these desalination plants. As part of the cultural ties, the Tirukural book, which is a Tamil classic, was gifted by PM Modi, which was translated to Tok Pisin language, which is the official language of Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is one of the world's most linguistically diverse countries, more diverse than India. In India, we say we have hundreds or almost 1,000 different languages and dialects. Papua New Guinea is even more diverse than India. Linguistically, it's a very, very diverse country. The official language here of the indigenous community is Tok Pisin. So the Tirukural book, which is a Tamil classic in Tamil literature, has been translated and gifted to the country to boost the cultural ties. Is that clear? You do have an Indian community here. There is a strong Tamil community in Papua New Guinea. They form the diaspora here, right? This again shows the historical, cultural, economic ties we have around the world. So you can see how Indian diaspora plays a critical role in our foreign policy in almost in every region. Especially today, we have a strong presence abroad, right? Historically, thanks to the British, they transported Indian families. Back then, it was a horror story for them. But today, it's a blessing for India because in many parts of the world, you have strong Indian presence with a strong Indian cultural connect that drives our diplomacy. It increases our influence. Today, in the last 40 years especially, many Indians have sought opportunities abroad, right, for studies, for employment, creating a widespread diaspora community that is driving our foreign policy today. That's why Prime Minister Modi, wherever he travels, right, he makes it a priority to meet the Indian community, to engage with them closely, right, because they are our cultural ambassadors promoting our influence, promoting our culture, our soft power diplomacy. They're also in influential positions who can influence foreign governments and shape public opinion in foreign countries in favor of India. So that is why the diaspora is extremely important for India, right? So with this, we can stop the discussion for now. We can take a short break. We will come back in 15 minutes. Anybody can have access to the commercial facilities. But as China has control over the operations of Hambantota, it can give it strategic access, meaning Chinese Navy can access it, which could never be available to India. Commercial access will any day be available at any port facility. That's not a problem. Vedashri is asking why US and Australia, who are anti-China, not trying influencing these Pacific islands and restricting China's entry here. They are doing it. See, traditionally, US and Australia have been the dominant powers in the Pacific Islands region. As I told you, US has major military bases and a major military deployment in the region. US and Australia are very close to Pacific Island countries. They have given them a lot of funds, and they have given them defense and security assistance as well. Now it is China which is countering American influence, and the US is trying to reassert itself. So that's why I told you there's a competition going on between them. US and Australia have always been the dominant strategic military powers in the Pacific. It's China which is now taking away their influence. Amandeep is asking, what about Malabar exercise by the Quad? What's the difference between joining a military alliance and militarization of groups? See, if you look at a group like NATO, that is a classic military alliance, right? The Quad countries, Japan, Australia, and US, they wanted to give such an angle to the Quad. If you form a military alliance, then you will have obligations to help each other, to assist each other in conflicts, right? You will have an obligation to share military resources as well. Now, India doesn't want to take up such an obligation as it could affect our ties with many other countries, with Russia, with China, and many others. Our ties could get affected if we enter any pro-Western military alliance. That's why we didn't allow Quad to become a military grouping or a military alliance. But Malabar exercise is a separate standalone naval exercise. Even though the same countries are involved in both, Malabar is not connected to Quad. It's not part of the Quad. Quad remains a diplomatic grouping, right? That's how India wanted it to be. India said no to militarization of the Quad. Whereas Malabar is a separate standalone naval exercise to promote close naval cooperation between the four navies. So there is no direct link between the Malabar and the Quad. Shreyank is asking, why just 3 summits in 7 years? One, because of the pandemic. 3-4 years got lost because of the pandemic. And also sometimes you can't have regular summits, right? The diplomatic calendar will be occupied. It's about finding the right time, finding the right opportunity as well. So it's not a guarantee that these summits will happen every year unless you provide for that in your agreements. Like India, ASEAN have done that. India, ASEAN, I mentioned, right? We have agreed to hold annual summits at any cost. So every year, India, ASEAN summit will happen. With Central Asia as well, we have recently agreed to hold summits every 2 years. So that gives more regularity to your interaction. With the FIPEC, the Forum for India Pacific Islands countries, we don't have that organized way of holding the summits. That's why we only had 3 summits in the last few years. Rahul is asking, sir, don't you think if Khalistan movement is going on, then we ensure that the relationship between India and Australia can be spoiled, or there are concerns? That's what I mentioned, right? The Khalistani activities which have grown in Australia does put pressure on India-Australia relations. If Australia doesn't cooperate, if it doesn't help us in tackling the threat, that is when the relationship will get affected. But if Australia is helping us, right, if it is sharing intelligence, working with India and cooperating with India, then it won't affect the relationship. Rather, a close relationship could help in taking down the Khalistan movement. Pratik is asking, what's the meaning of civil nuclear deal of India with USA and Australia if India is still not a member of NSG? These civil nuclear deals are preparation for final membership of India's membership to NSG. Right? Prior to becoming a member to NSG, we are signing many civil nuclear deals. Right? In a way, this lays the groundwork. It creates the foundation for transfer of nuclear material and nuclear technology to India. And you can always work out government to government deals and get an exemption from NSG, like Russia has done, for example. Russia is building the Kundankulam nuclear power plant in Tamil Nadu, right? So how come Russia is supplying nuclear reactors to India? How come Russia is supplying uranium to India? It's possible because Russia got an exemption. Russia approached NSG, right? Submitted all the details saying that this is just a civilian nuclear plant meant for electricity generation, got a exemption, and that is how Russia is able to export nuclear material and technology to India. So civil nuclear deals can help. You can go ahead and procure nuclear material by getting exemptions from NSG, but it lays the groundwork for India's future membership to NSG. And once we enter NSG, then full-fledged nuclear commerce can begin between India and other nuclear powers. Last question, Kamlesh is asking, sir, the PIC with increasing threats of climate change and global warming are facing the challenges of submerging. Are the countries including this in their agenda as well? Yes. That's what we discussed, right? These are very small countries, small island states, which are low-lying islands. Just like Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, they face the risk of getting submerged due to rising sea levels in the Indian Ocean. Similarly, these Pacific Island countries as well, they face the grave risk of submergence due to rising sea levels. They're also affected by extreme weather events. They're affected by multiple disasters, right? So, helping these countries in tackling the impact of climate change, because they're very vulnerable. They don't have enough economic and technical resources to shield themselves against the impact of climate change and disasters. So, this is where India comes in. Countries like India can help them out, and it is an integral part of our cooperation with the Pacific Island countries. All right. So, these were the questions. Now, let's start with the next chapter, which is on Central Asia. Let's study India's ties with Central Asia. This is another important topic. It's a very, very important region, but it's a small topic. We can cover it quickly. So I have given all the required points in the slides in the PPT. But in the discussion, I'll slightly break away from it. I'll give you a more comprehensive, holistic coverage in this discussion. So in the next 45 minutes or so, we should be able to understand our ties with Central Asia. We'll not just focus on our ties with these countries, we'll focus on some groupings that are present in Central Asia. We'll also look at some key projects as well that involve India to improve our connectivity with Central Asia. So these are the key topics we'll be covering. So let's start with the map of Central Asia. Let's understand the geography. As you know, to understand geopolitics, you need to be good in geography, right? There is a direct connection between geography and international relations. Now, this highlighted region is your Central Asia region. These are the 5 Central Asian countries. Kazakhstan is the largest Central Asian country. You can see the Aral Sea over here, Lake Balkhash, which are all major geographical features. Then you have Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. All right, there are 5 Central Asian countries. It's bound by the Caspian Sea over here. This here is Eastern Europe and Eurasia region. The Eurasia and the East Europe region. This would be West Asia over here, South Asia, right? And this here is East Asia. This is China basically. You can see Lake Baikal as well here in the same map. Then you have Mongolia and of course Russia. So this is exactly where your Central Asia region is located. Now this whole region comprising of these 5 Central Asian countries, they were all part of the erstwhile Soviet Union. I'll go point wise. I suggest you write down the key points along with me. These Central Asian countries, they were all part of the former Soviet Union. They were all Soviet republics. So in 1991, when Soviet Union collapsed and disintegrated and the Cold War came to an end, that is when these former Soviet republics, they broke away from Soviet Union and declared their independence. We saw the same happening in Eurasia and East Europe as well, right? That's how Ukraine, Belarus, and your Baltic countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all these countries were born. Even Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia in Eurasia, all these countries were born, right, from Soviet Union itself. So the collapse of Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, was a major geopolitical development. It changed the geography of the region itself. All these new independent countries were born, and Russia became the successor state to Soviet Union. So these Central Asian countries, which were former Soviet republics, they remain very, very close to Russia even today. If you ask me, which country is the most influential here? The answer is Russia. Russia has tremendous influence all over Central Asia because all these were former Soviet republics. Even today, Russia maintains very close political, security, and economic ties. It has even formed a military alliance with some of these countries. All right. There is close military cooperation. Russian troops are also deployed to help out these countries if they face any internal problems or security threats. Please find out which security grouping I'm talking about. That's a small homework for you. There is a close security arrangement between Russia and Central Asian countries, and Russia forms a military alliance here. So find out which military grouping it is. All right. So Russia has big investments. Russia has many Soviet era military factories present here. Even Russia has a spaceport from where it launches its space missions. They are located in Central Asia. Right. Apart from Russia, it is China, which is extremely influential. This here would be the Xinjiang province of China, which is home to the native Uyghur Muslims. Xinjiang, as you know, is a problematic region for China. Uyghur Muslims have rebelled against Chinese annexation and control, leading to destabilization of the region. So China is very concerned about stabilizing Xinjiang, and as a result, it pursues close security and military relations with Central Asian countries. Because the Uyghur terror groups like ETIM, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, they have close connections with other terror groups operating along the Afghanistan-Pakistan belt. So Central Asia also is affected by radicalism. There is rampant organized crime, and there are terror groups that have a presence as well in the region. They are mainly connected with the terror belt in the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. There exists a direct link over here. The radicalism, terrorism from Afghanistan-Pakistan border has spilled over to Central Asia, contributing to radicalism and terrorism and even organized crime. Drug trafficking, arms trafficking is very rampant in Central Asia. So this remains a major security challenge. The other important point here is Central Asia is blessed with tremendous resources. It's a very resource-rich region. Many experts, they say that almost every element of the periodic table is found here, and all key minerals are found in sufficient quantities. For example, let me just jump to this slide to give you a better picture. If you look at Kazakhstan, as I told you earlier, it has the world's second largest reserves of uranium, and it is the world's largest producer of uranium. So no wonder India has signed a civil nuclear deal with Kazakhstan. It can become a reliable supplier of uranium to India in the future to power our nuclear program. All right. Then if you look at, let's say, Uzbekistan, it has large reserves of natural gas, which is critical for our energy security, along with uranium and other precious metals like gold. Turkmenistan is blessed with the fourth largest reserves of natural gas. That's why we have a project called the Tapi pipeline, the Tapi gas pipeline, which connects Turkmenistan with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. This is an ongoing project. The project was nearing completion, but now it has been disrupted because of the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. So the project remains as it is. It's come to a standstill right now. It was backed by the US when US was still having a presence in Afghanistan. US was actively supporting this initiative. It encouraged India to be a part of it. And the idea was to bring natural gas from Turkmenistan. It has a major gas field called the Galinish natural gas field. From here, the pipeline would connect with major cities in Afghanistan like Herat, and Kandahar. It would pass into Pakistan to connect with Quetta and Multan, and then reach India at the Punjab border to land at Fazilka, which is a border town in Punjab. This was the alignment of the Tapi pipeline. India had concerns about the project because it was passing through the stronghold of Taliban. Kandahar, as we have studied, is a stronghold of the Taliban. It passes through problematic areas in Pakistan as well. So we were always concerned about terror groups targeting the pipeline or Pakistan cutting off access to India due to tensions in our relationship. But still, US pushed India to join this initiative, and we were hoping that it could transform the region. The project was going on. Part of it has been completed, but it has come to a halt. It has stalled right now because of the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. So we don't know the future of Tapi pipeline. But the fact that it has the fourth largest gas reserves and we had a pipeline project going on in itself is a significant fact. All right. And also note, Turkmenistan is one of the few countries in the world which has declared neutrality in geopolitics. There are few countries like Switzerland, Norway, right, Turkmenistan, and few others. They have officially declared neutrality in all geopolitical matters, meaning in wars and conflicts, they don't interfere, they don't meddle, they don't take sides. Understood? They act as neutral mediators if required, or they stay out of any such wars and conflicts. And they don't join any groups or military alliances where there's a clear military or a security angle involved. That is why Turkmenistan is not a member of the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. We will study SCO at the end of this chapter. It's a major regional grouping which is largely based out of Central Asia. The main focus of SCO is on Central Asia. So SCO has a military angle to it. It's a military grouping as well. Right? There is a clear security angle to SCO. So that is why Turkmenistan has stayed out of it. Turkmenistan is not a member because of its policy of neutrality. It doesn't take sides in geopolitical conflicts, doesn't take one side against another, and it doesn't join any military alliances and remains neutral in geopolitics. Then you have Tajikistan. We have historical civilizational ties with Tajikistan, even with Uzbekistan as well. And it's blessed with hydroelectric potential. Kyrgyzstan is blessed with gold and hydroelectric potential. Right? Apart from this, there are many precious minerals spread out across Central Asia like iron ore, coal, hydrocarbons, gold, lead, zinc, molybdenum, even copper, and rare earth elements, rare earth metals, and several critical strategic minerals are also found in Central Asia. Is that clear? Critical strategic minerals are found, including some rare earth elements. So that is how resource rich the region is. So that is the reason why it has become another source of geopolitical competition. Understood? Every major power is interested in the resources of Central Asia. Russia is already influential and dominant. Then there is China, which has aggressively expanded its Belt and Road Initiative. Very soon, the BRI summit is going to be held. In just a few days, the BRI summit will take place right now. You will see that in current affairs as well. China has actively pushed the land component. The Silk Road Economic Belt has been actively pushed into Central Asia, and China has already invested billions of dollars to build highways, railway link, and pipelines that connects China with many Central Asian countries. And these projects further extend into Eurasia, West Asia, and Europe. So China is extremely influential after Russia, mainly because of its proximity, right? It shares direct borders with Central Asia through Xinjiang province. It has direct connectivity to the other side. And it has brought billions of dollars in investments through Belt and Road Initiative. And it has executed these key projects, which gives China a good hold on the resources of Central Asia. Then United States and European Union also remain major powers in the region, and the US even has a few military bases in Central Asia. It has access to a few military bases. In fact, when US invaded Afghanistan, initial invasion began from the north, from Central Asia into Afghanistan. This is where US troops positioned themselves with all the military equipment, and these bases were critical in the Afghan war. US was getting military equipment, resupplies, additional troops through some of these bases present in Central Asia. Later, Pakistan also provided access. Pakistan became critical for the supplies. But Central Asia was also relied upon by US to fund and sponsor the Afghan conflict. European countries, especially European Union, has its own influence. Then several other powers as well. Some of the regional powers like India, Turkey, Pakistan, Iran, even these countries are very, very influential in Central Asia. So it's a major competition between them. Even other Western powers like Japan and Australia are looking to play a role in Central Asia. Even they are mainly interested in Central Asian resources, right? So this is a major geopolitical game, a great game that takes place in Central Asia region. The region is very volatile. There are many security and political challenges in the region. All right. And the region remains backward as well in terms of its development. It's not a very developed region. There is a lot of poverty, education, healthcare is still a challenge, connectivity is still a challenge, right? And the security threats, which I was mentioning, radicalism, organized crime, terrorism, and even political challenges. There have been many military rules or dictatorships, right? You don't have democracy across this region as well. So all these remain a challenge and a threat. And you witness this great game, a geopolitical rivalry of sorts between all the major powers going on in Central Asia. Now, if you pay attention, you'll also notice that Central Asia is landlocked, surrounded by land on all the sides. This becomes a very big limitation for exploiting the resources. As it is landlocked, connectivity is a challenge which hampers the exploitation of resources. Especially for India, the challenge is more severe because we have no direct connectivity. This is the key point I was getting to. Now, if you look at the map again, observe closely. India claims to have a small border here with Afghanistan. A border of around 96 to 106 kilometers is supposed to exist between India and Afghanistan. That is from Jammu and Kashmir. If you move towards Gilgit-Baltistan, we were supposed to have a small boundary here that would connect us with this narrow land corridor of Afghanistan. This was supposed to be a India-Afghanistan border, which would have connected us with this narrow land corridor here, which is called the Wakhan corridor towards the Hindu Kush mountains. In northern Afghanistan, right, towards Hindu Kush mountain ranges, you have the Wakhan corridor, which is a narrow land corridor of Afghanistan that would connect India's Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan with Afghanistan. But unfortunately, we don't have this border on the ground in reality because Pakistan has illegally captured these territories. This is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, right? This is where Indian control ends at line of control, at LOC. Beyond that, Pakistan has captured these territories of Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan and thereby we don't have direct connectivity with Afghanistan. So this affects our connectivity with Central Asia as well. If we had access to Wakhan corridor, if we could have connected with Afghanistan, then we could have directly connected with Central Asian countries. Because Afghanistan has borders with Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. But this connectivity is not possible because of Pakistan occupying Indian territory. So the only other option here would be to depend on transit access, which should be given by Pakistan. If Pakistan gives us transit access through its territory, even then India can connect. We can connect here via Pakistani territory to Afghanistan and then connect with Central Asia. But this again is not a viable route. Pakistan has denied this transit access repeatedly. All right? Even if it gives access, it is a risky route because terror groups operating against India might target the route. Pakistan itself might encourage terrorists to target the route, or Pakistan might suspend the transit access every now and then when we have tensions in the relationship. So this is not a reliable route for India. Just yesterday, there was a very, very important meeting of national security advisors between India and Central Asian countries. If you have read yesterday's news or even today's newspaper, right, you will find references to this. As part of the close India-Central Asia relations, NSA meeting has taken place. It's the second NSA meeting this year, where India's national security advisor meets with all the NSAs of Central Asian countries. We have very close strategic security relations, so we meet regularly. So during this meeting yesterday, India's NSA Ajit Doval has blamed Pakistan for affecting India's Central Asia ties. He has said Pakistan has denied transit access. That is why we don't have connectivity with Central Asia. He has criticized Pakistan for misusing its geographical advantage to block India's access and connectivity to Central Asia. All right? So that is a big challenge for us. So that is the reason why we explored an alternate route, which is none other than your Chabahar port, the strategic Chabahar port in Iran, which was developed by India. This here is Iran, a West Asian power. So India invested in the development of Chabahar port so that we could connect from the port into Afghanistan, where India has already built a road, the Zaranj-Dilaram road, which we studied under India-Afghanistan relations. Through this road, we could connect, we could directly link, not just with Afghanistan, but extend this route into Central Asia. This was India's plan, India's ambition. When we had a friendly Afghan government, when we had good ties with Iran as well, we were pursuing this trade corridor. Right? We had even signed a trilateral agreement in 2017 between India, Iran, and Afghanistan to operationalize the Chabahar trade route. We even started sending goods as well from India to Afghanistan and Afghanistan to India via Iran's Chabahar port. So the road we had built, the Zaranj-Dilaram road, was giving us critical access to Afghanistan via Iran. And we were hoping to extend this road into Central Asian countries. This was our strategy. This was our geostrategy to overcome the geographical hurdles present in the region. But these efforts have hit a stall, or they have hit a major hurdle because Taliban has taken over in Afghanistan. There is no clarity as to what will happen to these Indian projects. There's no guarantee if Taliban will give us this access, right? There's no guarantee what will happen to the Indian investments, the road that we have built in Afghanistan. And also our ties with Iran has been affected very badly. Since 2018, India-Iran relations are very severely affected because we have been following American sanctions. We have cut off trade ties with Iran, especially oil imports have been brought to an end because of American pressure on India. All right, we'll discuss that in detail under India-Iran relations. So right now, since India-Iran relations are affected, right, Iran has dropped India from the Chabahar railway project. To connect Chabahar port with Zaranj Dalaram Road in Afghanistan, a railway line was planned. India and Iran were jointly supposed to execute this key project. But Iran threw India out of the project after we cut off oil imports and followed American sanctions as we came under American pressure. So our ties with Iran is compromised. Afghanistan is right now unstable because of Taliban's takeover. So this connectivity route also has been affected. So this has always remained the challenge for India. Connectivity has been the biggest problem. See, India has fantastic relations with Central Asia, be it historically. If you look at historical cultural ties, we share a civilizational relationship with Central Asia. Our relationship goes back several centuries to thousands of years, right? There is a close connection through Islam, Buddhism, and you even find traces of Hindu connections in Central Asia, right? At one point, the Hindu Buddhist heritage of Indian civilization extended all the way till Afghanistan, right? You have Bamiyan Buddha statues as a standing example for that. You have a strong Sikh community. We did have before a Sikh community and a Hindu community as well in Afghanistan. There were historical links, Hindu Buddhist links in Central Asia. Even today, Buddhism is quite prominent in Central Asian countries. So Buddhism traveled from India towards Afghanistan and Central Asia thousands of years ago. There are traces of Hindu connection as well in Uzbekistan and other parts of Central Asia. Islam forms the biggest connection today. If you look at Babur, who laid the foundation of the Mughal rule in India, he came from Fargana Valley. He came from the slave dynasty from Central Asia, right? Some of you would know this. You would have studied this in history. Babur, he came from Fargana Valley. Where is Fargana Valley? Fargana Valley is at the tri-junction of Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. This is Fargana Valley. All right. So from Fargana Valley, Babur came down to India, laying the foundation of the Mughal empires in India, right? So that is a deep-rooted historical link we have. There are Hindu-Buddhist links, strong Islamic connection that binds the region together. And in modern times as well, even in the modern era, we have very close contact with the region. First of all, because of Soviet Union. As India aligned with Soviet Union and procured most military equipment from Soviet Union, several defense factories of Soviet Union were present here. Several defense platforms we have procured, like the MiG fighter jets, the various rockets and missiles, battle tanks, which are all of Soviet origin. Many of them were produced here in Central Asia in the Soviet factories. A lot of spare parts components were produced here. So that has been a strong connection. India has been working with this region even during the Soviet period from 1970s to 1990s. Even after Soviet Union collapsed, we have continued the close ties post 1991. The close relations have continued. It was not just during the Cold War period. Even after the Cold War, we have established very good ties with all the Central Asian countries. In fact, we were one of the first countries to recognize these 5 Central Asian countries that were formed after the collapse of Soviet Union. Right? So we have built a strong political diplomatic relationship, but our economic ties are compromised due to lack of connectivity. If you look at our soft power ties, there is a very big soft power influence that we exercise here. Apart from the religious link through Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism, there is another soft power influence you find that goes back to at least 60, 70 years. Since 1950s, 1960s, Bollywood movies and songs are extremely popular in this region. If you have ever visited any of these regions, right, you will not see any restaurant or cafe or a cab where Hindi songs are not played, right? Especially the older movies and songs, going back to the era of Devanand, Raj Kapoor, right? Even Mithun Chakraborty. They are all extremely popular here. There's cult following for these 60s, 70s, 80s Bollywood movies and music. Then even classical art of India is very popular. Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi, Kathak. There are many Central Asian students who come to India to study these classical art forms. Understood? Today, lot of medical students from India, they go to study in Central Asian countries because medical education is cheaper in these countries. So there is such a strong soft power link that binds us together, right? So the only problem that we are facing here, the biggest challenge, is the lack of connectivity. As the region is landlocked, as Afghanistan is under Taliban's rule, our ties with Iran is affected. Pakistan would not give us transit access, and it occupies the parts of Kashmir. Because of these geographical and geopolitical problems, we have no connectivity, no access. The only route is the long route, right, via Mediterranean, across Europe, through Russia, and then Central Asia. That will take more than 1 month. If you are to send goods from Central Asia to India through this long sea route, it's going to take 50 to 60 days. That's not viable, right? That's why our trade economic ties have been affected. So the primary focus, the central focus of our relationship is connectivity. That's why our policy towards Central Asia is called Connect Central Asia. The key word, the operative word here is connect. India uses this policy while driving relations with these countries. Just like we have a Look East, Act East policy, right? We have a Connect Central Asia policy. The focus here is connect, which means to establish physical connectivity as well with Central Asia, because that is when this relationship will have true meaning. Central Asian countries, which are so friendly to India, they are ready to share resources with India, right? India is ready to make big investments. But what is holding us back is the lack of connectivity. So that's why our policy towards the region is called Connect Central Asia policy. Got it? So based on this, let us take a look at some recent developments in the relationship. As I was mentioning earlier, I've added all the key points for your background, but we have covered all the important explanation and analysis that was needed. Now I'll bring you to some recent developments that have happened in the last few years and understand what India is doing to overcome these challenges. Recently, Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit all the 5 Central Asian countries in a single visit. He was participating in the UFA BRICS meeting. The BRICS summit was held at Ufa in Russia. Following this BRICS summit, PM Modi visited all the 5 Central Asian countries in a single go, in one visit in 2015. This marked the beginning of high-level political engagement. It started a new era in our relationship. It triggered high-level political engagement between India and Central Asia. See, even before this, India was close to Central Asia. Previous governments had built very close strategic ties. But the visit of the PM to all the countries in one single visit was something remarkable. It was unprecedented, and it laid the foundation for frequent high-level interaction. At the SCO summit, India, Pakistan were added as members. Right? India became a major member of SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, giving us greater leverage to work with these countries. Projects like Tapi gas pipeline also gave a major push for Indian influence in the region. So based on all these developments that were taking place, last year we held the first ever India Central Asia Summit. In 2022, on the occasion of our Republic Day, we had invited all the Central Asian leaders as the chief guests for the Republic Day parade. I'm sure you know that every year during Republic Day, we invite a foreign leader or a group of foreign leaders from a particular region, right? This is not just a formality. It's a very important diplomatic move by India. It's a symbolic gesture, right? I told you, right? Symbolism holds a lot of value in diplomacy. Every year we send out a message, a symbolic message to a certain country or a region by inviting their leaders as the chief guests. It means throughout this year, we will pay priority to our ties. Understood? We have invited leaders of Brazil, then UAE, the United States. All ASEAN leaders were invited once. So similarly, all Central Asian leaders, all the 5 leaders were invited to be the chief guests at the Republic Day parade. So do you know in 2023, which was the focus country? Which country did we invite for the Republic Day parade? Which country's leader was invited this year? US. Not US. Biden has not visited India yet. Apart from G20, he has not paid a bilateral visit. Correct answer is Egypt. Many of you gave the right answer. Very good. Egyptian President Al-Sisi was a chief guest, meaning we will prioritize our ties with Egypt. That's why Egypt was invited as a guest country as well for G20 summit. Right? Recently, we have signed some important deals with Egypt as well. So every year we do this. We invite a foreign leader as a chief guest, and it's a symbolic gesture that we are going to prioritize our ties this year. So last year, we had invited all Central Asian leaders. They were about to attend the summit as well. They were about to visit India to be the chief guest and hold a first India Central Asia summit. But unfortunately, at the last minute, the visit got cancelled. Because of the pandemic, the leaders could not travel to India at the last minute. If you remember, right, until December 2021, the pandemic was declining. But suddenly a new wave spread, a new variant, the Omicron variant broke out, triggering lockdowns and restrictions again. And this was what prevented Central Asian leaders from traveling to India. All right, so physical summit could not happen. They couldn't physically be the chief guests at the Republic Day parade. So the physical summit which was planned, the first ever India Central Asia summit, was cancelled. But however, we held a virtual summit. We didn't allow the pandemic to derail our ties. So we shifted the summit to the virtual format. And thus, the first ever India Central Asia summit took place. Now, this is historic. See, we have met with all Central Asian countries separately. We have interacted with them as a group as well. But this was the first time a summit level interaction was being organized, where the Indian Prime Minister would simultaneously interact with all the leaders of Central Asia, all the presidents of Central Asia. So this virtual meeting took place and several key initiatives have been announced. You need to make a note of this. Both sides have agreed to hold this summit every 2 years, which gives regularity to the summit. It will not be some one-off interaction which happens once in a while. It will happen regularly, every 2 years. So in 2024, in just a few months, there will be another India Central Asia Summit, the second India Central Asia Summit. In between the summits, they will hold regular meetings of their foreign ministers, trade ministers, culture ministers, and the national security advisors. This was the meeting I was referring to, which took place yesterday. In a year, at least 2 meetings are planned between NSAs of these countries. So at the start of 2023, there was one NSA meeting, right, when Taliban took over Afghanistan as well. Even then, India had invited all the NSAs together to discuss the security situation, because whatever happens in Afghanistan affects India, affects Central Asia as well. So now this has become a regular interaction between these senior ministers and national security advisors. A permanent secretariat has been established in Delhi to lead this summit, to follow up on the decisions and to take care of its implementation. All right, a permanent secretariat has been created, an executive office which will function from New Delhi to hold and organize the summit, to plan these meetings and to implement all the decisions taken, to follow up on the initiatives, and to ensure that we see success in this relationship. They are focusing on trade and connectivity, the number one priority. They are focusing on development cooperation, as these are backward countries slightly. India is going to help them. We are going to provide loans and line of credit and make investments to drive their development. Defense, security, intelligence sharing is another top focus for both the sides. Apart from cultural and people to people contacts. These are the focus areas of India Central Asia relations. They have set up a round table for energy and connectivity. Right? India can procure oil and gas. We are also looking at hydropower cooperation, where India can invest in hydropower plants, and then the hydropower can be potentially exported through a power grid. So this is a major focus. A separate joint working group has been formed to look at the situation in Afghanistan after Taliban's takeover, because they're deeply worried about the impact. Because previously Taliban has bred radical terror groups, enabled organized crime. So this poses a threat to the stability of the entire region. It could spill over to India, spill over to Central Asia. So they're concerned. So they have a joint working group for this. And they're also looking to make use of Chabahar port in Iran. They're trying to find ways through which the Iran-Afghanistan Central Asia route can be operationalized to connect with India. All right, a separate working group has been formed for this to figure out ways through which the Chabahar route can be activated so we can transport goods from Central Asia directly to India via Afghanistan and Iran. They are planning Buddhist exhibitions to explore the Buddhist heritage. Islamic scholars from both the sides are being encouraged to engage each other to promote our Islamic heritage, which is a common shared heritage. Joint counter-terrorism exercises and military exercises are planned as well. We have few military exercises individually with these countries. Now we are planning to hold a common exercise, a common joint military and counter-terrorism exercise. They've also agreed to promote youth cooperation, to select young students from both countries and send them on visits so that they can learn about each other's cultures. And we'll also help train their diplomats. We'll provide training for their young diplomats, their probationary officers. Right? So this is the joint vision that has been laid out under the India Central Asia Summit. Is that clear? So UPSC might ask a question. It might ask you about the importance of Central Asia to India, what challenges are present in this relationship, and what are the recent developments that took place as a result of India Central Asia Summit. A 15 marks question can come. You need to explain the geography, the history, right, the close ties we have, the challenges we are facing, and how we are planning to overcome them. Understood? So for connectivity, Chabahar port remains crucial for us. We need to see whether our ties with Iran will improve. In the next chapter on West Asia, we will study India-Iran relations in detail. There I will explain how India-Iran relations have taken a hit since 2018. All right, we'll study that separately. So there is a doubt about the route. Also, the Taliban rule in Afghanistan has become a risk factor. We're not sure how things will develop in the coming days. But this is absolutely vital. This is the only viable link for us. Is that clear? Next, we have another project here, which has the same potential, which is the INSTC corridor, the International North-South Transport Corridor. This idea was proposed in the 1990s, but it had become a dormant idea, and recently it has been revived. The plan is to create a shorter, more viable and economical route to connect India with Russia. Because see, the current trade route between India and Russia is a very long, circuitous route. If you have to send goods from India to Russia or procure something from Russia to India, the current route is through Arabian Sea over here. You reach Gulf of Aden, pass through Bab el Mandeb Strait, enter the Red Sea, you cross the Suez Canal, reach the Mediterranean, then cross over across Europe, across the Atlantic, reach the North Sea, Baltic Sea, and then Russia. This is a very long, unviable route. Any shipment here takes almost 45 days. 30 to 45 days is the minimum time. Plus, there are choke points present. Suez Canal here is a choke point. Recently, there was an incident. You might know about this. Just last year, a ship was grounded at Suez Canal in this narrow canal, blocking shipment through Suez Canal, which affected shipping traffic between Mediterranean and the Red Sea. The global economy went into a turmoil because of it. Indian economy took a hit because of this disruption at Suez Canal. Right. Because there's no other route. Other route is across Africa. The old route from Europe across Africa, from around Cape of Good Hope near South Africa, and then to Mozambique Channel to the Indian Ocean. Right? That route is unviable and it's not practical in today's times. There is Bab el Mandeb Strait, which is a choke point here. Right. So there are many threats in this region, from civil wars to terrorism, which is a serious concern. Plus, the long route increases the cost and the time of transportation. So India and Russia, they have been working on this idea since at least 25 to 30 years. And Iran and Azerbaijan are integral to this project. Understood? It's a multimodal transport project. The plan is to connect India with Iran to strategic ports like the Bandar and Chabahar port. Chabahar port and Bandar port, the two major Iranian ports which face Persian Gulf. It's near Hormuz Strait over here. This is the Persian Gulf, this is the Hormuz Strait. So the plan is to create a maritime link from India to Iranian ports. From here, the ports can be taken through Iran's road and rail network to reach this water body, the Caspian Sea. Now, don't think this is a regular sea. It's not an open sea. It's not an actual sea. It's actually an endorheic lake. It's the world's largest enclosed lake. Alright. That's why I told you Central Asia is landlocked. If I come back to the map, you might notice Caspian Sea here. You might say that there is sea access. No, there isn't. Caspian Sea is not your regular open sea. It's a closed endorheic lake. Caspian Sea doesn't connect you anywhere on the water body. If you see Caspian Sea, it's landlocked. Right? That's Central Asia is landlocked. But through Caspian Sea, inland navigation was possible. Over here, Azerbaijan and Russia, they have enabled inland navigation through ships and boats. So from here, the goods can be shipped into Russia. If we want, we can extend the route into East Europe and West Europe as well. This route has great potential. It can create a shorter connectivity and enhance Indian influence and bring all countries closer. In a way, it can be our counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. But unfortunately, the project hits many hurdles and many challenges. Right. First of all, Iran is affected. Iran is under sanctions, which will affect any such investments. Right. So that's why Iran is taking a hit as India became allied with US. As we came under American pressure, oil trade with Iran. Azerbaijan also has been affected. You guys have heard about the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, which has been raging for many years. And recently, Azerbaijan has fully captured Nagorno-Karabakh. It was an enclave kind of a region where the Armenian population was present, Armenian Christians were primarily present here in Nagorno-Karabakh. But Azerbaijan, a largely Muslim country, had sovereignty over Nagorno-Karabakh. This is a Soviet-era dispute. After they broke away from Soviet Union in 1991, right, it came under Soviet control, came under Azerbaijan's control. Internationally, everyone recognizes Nagorno-Karabakh as Azerbaijan territory. But Armenia started claiming it, triggering conflict between them, and any wars have taken place. Right, even in 2020, there was a clash between them. But just 4 days back, literally 10 15 days ago, Azerbaijan launched a major offensive military operation and crushed the Armenian SS movement and it has fully taken control of Nagorno-Karabakh. So Armenians are leaving the region, getting a retaliation from Azerbaijan. They are going back to Armenia. Right? Even though Azerbaijan has said will not threaten them, but civilians have moved out, triggering humanitarian crisis. So the Armenians are going out to Armenia through a corridor called the Lachen corridor. The narrow land corridor was the only connection between Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. Alright? But as I told you, this region has always been recognized as Azerbaijan territory, not Armenian territory. Almost every country in India, everyone recognizes as Azerbaijan territory. Now Azerbaijan has taken full control of the region, and there is a humanitarian crisis because Armenians, they are fearing retaliation, they are moving out to Armenia. Now what is this? What to do with India? It has everything to do with India because we have a problem with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was a great friend before. We are actually very close, very good. We have very good ties. But recently he has aligned with Pakistan and it deliberately started backing Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. At platforms like United Nations and Organization of the Islamic Cooperation, Azerbaijan has deliberately supported Pakistan. Now, why would Azerbaijan do that? Azerbaijan is concerned about India's defense relations with Armenia. See, India got closer to Armenia because Azerbaijan was close to Pakistan. So India started supplying weapons, especially after the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict broke out. We have supplied advanced weaponry to Armenia, including critical radars, the Pinaka multi-weapon rocket launch system, and other weapon platforms have been sold by India to Armenia. This has strengthened Armenia's defense, as Azerbaijan is angry about it. India scaled up the defense exports because Azerbaijan was supporting Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. So it's becoming a very hot match. So Azerbaijan is slightly affected. But there were plans to execute this route where we could have navigation Caspian Sea via Azerbaijan territory directly with Russia. Apart from this, Russia itself has come under crippling Western sanctions just as the Russian economy. Even this has cast shadow on INSC project. Right. So there are many challenges for the success of the project, but still there is a great potential here. Now, how is this relevant for Central Asia? It is relevant because this corridor becomes operational. We can easily open a route to Central Asia. Since Central Asian countries are connected to Caspian Sea. Correct? Kazakhstan, for example. Kazakhstan, Pakistan. Let's go back to the map. You can see here, Kazakhstan and Pakistan both share direct boundaries with Caspian Sea. Here they are Urals and Caspian. So from here we can divert INSC route and connect Central Asian countries. This is another route has potential, but the project is also forward. But right now there are many challenges and problems. Next, we have another important project called Ashgabat Agreement. It was launched in 2011 with the intention of connecting Central Asia with the Persian Gulf. The goal was to further bring West Asian countries closer to Central Asian countries and link them with the Persian Gulf so that they can exchange resources, improve trade and economic relations. It was started by Uzbekistan, Iran, Pakistan, Oman. Kazakhstan also joined it later. And recently, India and Pakistan also have been admitted as full-time members of Ashgabat Agreement. So it bring South Asian countries as well into the picture. It's another force initiative. Right, in South Asia, closer West Asia, link them with Persian Gulf, connect with Central Asia, so to create this trade corridor. Right. But unfortunately, the project again has faced many hurdles and challenges. Just look at the map. It is supposed to be a multimodal trans corridor involving road, railway network pipelines. Where these Central Asian countries, all Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, they connect with Iran, right, and access the strategic Persian Gulf and key ports like Chabahar Port, Bandar Abbas Port, etc. And further linked with West Asian countries like Oman. And India has also joined the initiative with Pakistan, which has been admitted to create the trade routes, trade linkage. This could have great potential to drive regional cooperation. Even Qatar was part of it, UAE showing interest, but they all stayed out later. But these countries are still part of the arrangement. But challenge again is in taking forward the projects. Since Iran is being targeted by US and Western countries with sanctions, right? And also there's a lot of destabilization in the region, right? Because of terrorism, what has happened in Afghanistan, our complex ties Iran ties have been affected. So because of all these challenges, the project has not taken off. But again, this is another major initiative that has great potential. All right. So you should know about the Ashgabat Agreement. Now, coming to our last point, there are two important groupings I would like to mention on this region. One is the Eurasian Economic Union, and the other is SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Eurasian Economic Union was launched in the year 2014 with the leadership of Russia. It was primarily Russia which has driven this initiative to form a customs union, to boost trade and set up a free trade area. Basically, like a free trade agreement to reduce customs duties and taxes, provide for the movement of goods, and set up a free trading region towards Central Asia and Eurasia. So this initiative has been primarily led by Russia. It's a Russian initiative, and it's a Russian initiative reviving the glory of the Soviet Union. It's primarily driven by Russian President Putin. Right? There is someone who is nostalgic about the early Soviet Union. He wants to bring back the glory to Russia. He wants to bring more public under the free trade arrangement. That's why it includes Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, and Belarus. These are the countries that are part of it. Initially established by Kazakhstan and Russia. They are very close allies of Russia, by the way. For example, in the ongoing war in Ukraine, Belarus has attacked Russia. It allowed Russian troops stationed to attack Ukraine from the north. Right. The Belarusian president, who's a dictator, Lukashenko, is very close to Russian President Putin. They share very close defense relations. Same with Kazakhstan. Recently, Kazakhstan faced political turmoil where the protests against the Kazakhstan dictator. Russia deployed troops as part of its military alliance and stabilized the Kazakhstan government backed the dictatorship. That is those relations that Russia has in these countries. It's very close to Armenia as well. Very close to Kyrgyzstan joined later after the BT came into force. They've joined one by one. But Russia's biggest ambition was to include Ukraine under this economic union. This was Russia's key desire when the idea was initially floated in 2010. Since then, Russia has tried to create such a customs union of free trade area basically bring back the glory days of the Soviet Union. And Ukraine would be the most critical part of it. But Ukraine refused to join. This is where the worst division came up. The war that you're seeing today, the conflict that has gone now following Russia's invasion, right, starts with this. Russia has been very influential in Ukraine, and Ukraine has been critical for Russia even after the collapse of the Soviet Union. When you look at the Soviet Union prior to 1991, Ukraine was a constituent, right, had major industries, factories, nuclear power plants, like Chernobyl, Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, right. It is a major agricultural country, producing wheat, soybeans, corn, sunflower, and other commodities. It has many industries producing engineering components as well. So Ukrainian economy was critical for the Soviet economy. There is a strong Russian Russian ethnic population in Ukraine. So even after the Soviet Union collapsed and disintegrated, Russia always wanted to be influential in Ukraine. From 1991 almost till 2013, there was a pro-Russian government in Ukraine. Russia had short that Ukrainian government over Russia. The Ukrainian president was someone who was very close to Russian leadership. Russian intelligence and armed forces would have great influence in Ukraine. So Russia tried desperately to bring Ukraine into the economic union because Western countries led by the US, European Union, and NATO, they were repeatedly trying to move Ukraine and pull Ukraine away from Russian influence. This was a war going on between them back in 2013. Russia has alleged that these Western countries sponsored the so-called pro-democracy movement, triggering a revolution in Ukraine, the so-called Orange Revolution, through which the pro-Russian government was thrown out. Pro-Russian government collapsed, leading to severe loss of Russian influence, and Ukraine saw the rise of pro-Western government in 2014. Is that clear? Yeah. That is when Ukraine rejected the Eurasian Economic Union. It started getting closer to US, EU, and NATO, and potentially they were discussing membership of Ukraine into European Union and more importantly in NATO as well. This is where Russia got triggered in its area of influence when it was trying to consolidate its power and influence. The key constituents taken away from Russia because of direct Western intervention. Western countries led by US and European countries have constantly expanded the membership of EU and NATO towards Eastern Europe. Their prime goal was to bring Ukraine under it. So as the rise of democracy movement, the pro-Russian government was toppled and pro-West government came up. Right. Ukraine started considering EU's membership, NATO's membership instead of the Eurasian Economic Union. This is what angered Russia and ended Russia and annexed Crimea. Russia gradually annexed the Crimean Peninsula and sponsored a separatist war in Ukraine. So the war you're seeing from last year, it didn't happen just last year, there was a big history behind it. Right, we will revisit again under Russia relations when we discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict. But here it's important to understand Ukraine stayed out of it, which became the trigger for Russia to annex Crimea and sponsor separatist war in Ukraine. That's what laid the foundation for the current war. Right, it's definitely increasing as Ukraine was about to join either EU or NATO. Russia launched a military invasion last year, triggering the current conflict. So this movement is very important for Russia. It is trying to form an integrated single market to provide for free movement of goods and capital and drive trade and economic opportunities. Now, how is that relevant for India? It is relevant for India because we are close to most other countries. We are very close to Russia, very close to Armenia, very close to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, very close to Venezuela as well. So potentially, India can sign a trade agreement with this economic union. There is a proposal. Initial talks have been held, but now it has taken a hit because of war and because of the sanctions against Russia. Alright. So there is a proposal here for trade agreement between India and Eurasian Economic Union. Now coming to the last grouping, the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, one of the most important regional groupings of the world. One of the most powerful regional groupings as well. The SCO was established as the Shanghai Five in the year 1996. That is where the history of the SCO goes back to. It was formed between China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. These were the five countries signed this agreement with Shanghai, forming the Shanghai Five group in 1996. The plan was to form a political, economic, and security alliance. Later in 2001, the relations were elevated by signing the Shanghai Pact, which also added a new member. The sixth member was added, that is Uzbekistan. Previously, Uzbekistan had been excluded, still not a member. So only these five countries from the Central Asia region had formed the group called Shanghai Five, and to Shanghai Pact signed in 2001. Six members were added, that is Uzbekistan had added. The group was renamed as SCO. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization was formed. Its charter was adopted. The whole organization renamed and restructured, leading the emergence of this group as a major political, economic, security alliance, which mainly focuses on Central Asia. This group has promoted political ties between these countries. It is promoting close economic relations, including connectivity. Connectivity is the prime focus for SCO to boost economic relations. There is a social security cooperation as well as this grouping. Alright. And even cultural ties are a focus as SCO. So this grouping led by China and Russia, along with Central Asian countries, saw a major expansion when Myanmar, Pakistan also admitted at the Astana Summit in 2017. In 2017, we were still observer states. India, Pakistan were already partners for many years. We were only holding the status of observer states. But we had applied for membership even for the group. Russia was eligible as involvement especially. And thanks to the help of Russia and Central Asian countries, despite the presence of China and despite Pakistan's parallel allocation, we managed to become a member through the Astana Summit. So the membership increased to 8. The 7 and 8 members were added at Astana Summit. Uzbekistan was the 6th. So this was a major expansion. The addition of India and Pakistan, it became a major grouping, bringing Southeast Asian countries as well into the fold. So focus of this group has been on connectivity, like road, rail, pipeline connectivity. It's focused on security cooperation as well as the region is affected by radicalism and organized crime. So there is a platform under SCO called RATS, RAAS, the Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure. Alright, Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure. It's a counter-terrorism platform of the SCO to counter terrorism and radicalism and promote intelligence sharing, and even more counter-terror operations. Alright, this is where India finds a major focus, right? Because all the other countries are affected can work with India, cooperate with India, and Pakistan also is part of it. So we are seeing RAD as a potential platform where we work with Pakistan, China, Russia, and Central Asian countries to counter terrorism and radicalism in the region. Cultural ties also are a major focus. They promote the cultural links between each other, right, with the intention of promoting multiple relations, civilization ties. They even hold a military exercise. India has in the military exercise as well with the other powers. So that is what is interesting about SCO. Recently, there is a big development. All right. India was holding the chair of SCO for 2023. India was holding the chair position on a rotational basis. So this year's summit was hosted by India. The 2020 summit was held by India at Goa. All right. But that's not the only development. Recently, Iran, which was an observer, has been approved as the ninth member. This happened 2 years ago actually at the Dushanbe Summit 2021. Iran's membership was approved and the process was taken forward with Samarkand Summit in Uzbekistan last year. But Iran is yet to complete the formal process because there is an process of joining the group. So it is yet to formally join. That's why there are only 8 members as of now. 9 members have been approved. Iran will become the 9th member, but it takes some more time. Like India, Pakistan, we got approval in 2017 Astana Summit. We joined formally in 2018, completed the process in 1 year. But in case of Iran, it's taking slightly more time. So very soon, Iran will fully join the group as the 9th member. It's an observer state previously. There are many other important observers that are not parts in SCO. That's what makes it so important. There is Afghanistan as an observer, Mongolia, then Belarus, Turkey as a dialogue partner, even Sri Lanka, Nepal, Cambodia, right? Many of them are seeking elevation. Many of them want observer status from dialogue partners. Many of them want full membership as well. Like Turkey is seeking membership. West Asian powers are showing a lot of interest. UAE, Saudi Arabia. As the profile of looping has grown, Turkey, UAE, and Saudi Arabia are also showing interest. Not just being dialogue partners or observers, but to join the group itself as full-time members. Belarus might become the next member. Right? So it is bringing several countries from Central Asia, South Asia, and West Asia together, right? Even Southeast Asia to form this formidable organization. As I told you, there is a military exercise as well. India participates in it. Disaster management is a focus, as Central Asia is also affected by many disasters, floods, landslides, earthquakes, etc. Cultural ties are a priority. India's Varanasi has been chosen as the first cultural site under the group. It will promote cultural interaction, will bring tourists and youth students from these member countries to visit Varanasi, build cultural ties. Exactly, so recently hosted the summit as well. But however, for India, this will remain a dilemma. On one hand, we have SCO, which is primarily led by Russia and China. Then you also have problematic countries like Pakistan. Parallelly, we are also working with groups like Quad, the Quadrilateral. So there is always a concern that how will India balance these two. India says that this is a reflection of our policy of multi-alignment. India says that this is our multi-alignment policy. We will align with any power, any country, any group who serve our interests. So we need Western countries, so we'll align with what? We need Russia and others as well. So we'll align SCO as well. So this has been India's approach, and we have been striking the balance as well, leading both the initiatives. Like for this year itself, right? We hosted SCO Summit. We successfully hosted G20 Summit. And we are getting even closer to Western countries while maintaining our ties with Russia. But it definitely poses a challenge. There is no doubt about it. Right. On one hand, US and European countries, Western countries, they oppose closer ties with Russia and China. They have a major rivalry going on between them, where they are targeting each other. Western countries are imposing sanctions on Russia and China. Russia and China are targeting Western interests. There is Pakistan, which could create problems for India again. It may not really cooperate with us. Our ties with Iran is not going great. So there are many hurdles and challenges, right? That's why Western media, Western think tanks, they dismiss SEO. They say that India is trying to play all the sides, and they criticize India that it's not aligning with Western countries. But India rejects the stand of Western countries and Western media. We say that we have a multi-aligned policy. We are here to serve our national interests. Right? Our foreign policy is built on strategic autonomy. So we'll work with Russia as well, we'll work with Western countries as well. That's what explains our involvement with SEO and Quad and other Western groupings. These are polar opposites, but India is the only one which can be part of both because of our policy of multi-alignment. See, this can go either ways. It can be beneficial for us because it might give us the opportunity to bridge the gap between Western countries and Russia and China. We can be the potential mediator in between. We saw that in action during 2020. Right? We managed to strike a consensus. No one thought to bring a joint statement. Right? It is impossible. By bringing all countries together and working on a joint statement under the New Delhi Declaration. But drawback is we might be seen as a country which switches from country to country and group, and we may not get true genuine support from these major powers. It might leave us divided, distracted by these groups and their rivalries. So there are challenges definitely. Many have raised questions about SEO itself because these countries have different political and economic systems. Like Russia is authoritarian country, China is a communist authoritarian nation, Pakistan is a failed state. Then others are showing interest like Belarus, Turkey, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, which is being added as a member. They're all authoritarian countries, conservative countries. So how will India and democratic countries fit in? Right? These are valid questions. There are major differences that exist. So only time will tell whether SEO will help us. We had a lot of ambitions and hopes placed on it. So let's see how things will go. We need to look at current affairs to monitor the future developments. But you should be aware of this divide, this kind of dilemma we face between SEO, which is led by Russia, China, and Quad and other Western relations we have with Western countries. All right. Then again, Pakistan being part of it may not be very helpful. Initially, we thought this could give us an opportunity to repair our relationship. We thought it gives us an opportunity to both Pakistan and maybe address the threat of terrorism. Because China is also concerned about APIIM. Right. Central Asian countries are also concerned about terrorism in their region, which is directly linked to terrorism in Afghanistan, Pakistan. Russia is deeply concerned about radicalism in the Caucasus region over here. In the Caucasus, in the Russian Caucasus, there is a major threat of terrorism. There are many terrorists operating here, which threaten Russia. Even they have connections with the same Afghanistan conflict. So India was hoping that all of them could pressure Pakistan together to counter terrorism. We could use the RAD platform to put pressure on Pakistan and counter terrorism. But these hopes of India have still not been realized. Right? Pakistan continues to use this approach to supporting terrorism. Right? Ties with China are severely affected because of water tension. That's also another point. India-China relations are at the lowest right now. Our ties are completely compromised because of water tensions. So Western experts keep asking, how will this work? How will this succeed when most countries, members have conflicts and disputes and different political and economic systems? Right? How will they cooperate and work together? Right? So that is a valid argument. It's a valid criticism. But at the same time, the members believe there is direct potential to the group. It could change the world order. Right? World order is dominated by the West. We might move away from Western dominance and create a new parallel global order. So that is where SEO has potential as well. So only time then whether this will succeed or not. So please be aware of this dilemma that we face between SEO and Quad and other groups. All right. It's basically between Russia and US. That's the dilemma we face over here. So this brings my daily discussion to an end. It completes Central Asia as what you should know. The history, the background, geography, our priorities, what recent initiatives have been taken up, and the groupings and all the projects in the region. All right. Now let's see some questions, and then